Olympic Games, Paris 2024.
With Adrian Chiles.
On BBC Radio 5 Live.
Hello and welcome. Good morning. Day 14 of the Olympics. There are 9 medals up for grabs for Team GB today. KJT is looking good for gold in the heptathlon. Kath Merry.
Liverpool-born Katarina Johnson-Thompson still leads the Olympic heptathlon after 5 events. A 6-metre-40 long jump means she now has a 45-point lead over Belgium's Nafi Thiam. The javelin next, and the Briton will continue her quest for Olympic gold.
We have British hopes in the men's boulder and Leeds final. Maz Faruqi.
And both GB climbers are underway in this boulder final. A strong start for both Hamish MacArthur and Toby Roberts, but a fall for MacArthur on the second boulder means he has ground to make up now, and he's just fallen as well whilst attempting boulder 3 of 4.
And at the velodrome, Team GB will be looking at their already impressive medal tally.
Now into the home straight, Emma Finucane is going to get there and take the gold medal for Great Britain in a new world record. They've smashed it again. How about that?
And we're going to bring you every Team GB medal live here on 5 Live, as we have for the last 2 weeks. You can also follow events on the BBC Sport website and app, or watch on BBC One or the iPlayer.
Paris 2024, the Olympic Games.
With Adrian Chiles.
On BBC Radio 5 Live.
Let's go straight to the Stade de France. Kath Merry, Alison Kirbishley. Good morning. How's business?
Good morning. Business is good. KJT on the infield doing her final few warm-ups for the next element in the heptathlon, as we've mentioned that she leads. But on the track, it's time for the heats of the men's 4x400 metres relay. Great Britain going this one in lane number 8 up against United States of America, who have bought a good team. Of course they have, it's the USA. But Great Britain and Northern Ireland are also lining up with a tough team as well. Look at that. Matthew Hudson-Smith and Charlie Dobson, 2 of Britain's best, are in this heat as the British team go in lane number 8.
Yeah, and I think the big shock, as we look at the Botswanan team, all of a sudden we see Letsile Tebogo, the Olympic 200-metre champion, on the first leg, but he's still not in our list. So I don't know what happened in warm-up, but they certainly brought in the big guns for Botswana. This could be an Olympic final, Kath.
It's a tough lineup. It's the first 3 and the next 2 that'll go through to the final. Poland, USA, Germany, Botswana, Japan, Great Britain going 8, and Trinidad and Tobago. The USA have Quincy Wilson on their first leg. He's 16. It's his Olympic debut, obviously. They're in the blocks. A bit of noise around the Stade de France. So the gun goes in the first heat of the men's 4x4. Sam Reardon, a 44.7 400 metre runner this year for Great Britain, goes on the first leg. Already has a bronze medal from earlier in the games in the mixed 4x400 metre relay. Tebogo is absolutely flying the Botswana, and he is a 400 metre specialist as well as the 200 metres Olympic champion. Wilson, the 16-year-old, going well as well, as is Sam Reardon in third at the moment.
What a leg from Letsile Tebogo. He started the year running a world record over 300 metres, and my, look how smooth he is. But Sam Reardon, really cracking leg from the man who led off our mixed relay team to a medal.
Botswana lead. Great Britain are in second place. Matthew Hudson-Smith is head down following the curb line. The Olympic silver medalist has Britain in third. The USA are out of this one at the moment. 16-year-old Quincy Wilson handing over to Vernon Norwood, who's twice his age, is going down the back straight, but the USA are about 60 metres off the pace.
Well, Vernon Norwood has to run the leg of his life. They got the medal, they got the silver medal in the mixed relay, and he is making ground. But Matt Hudson-Smith currently battling with the Japanese athlete as he swings round into the home straight in second place.
Botswana lead by 20 metres. Good running from Matt Hudson-Smith. The British team in second place ahead of Japan. Toby Harries now 10 metres down on Botswana. Anthony Pessola for them on the third leg. And the British team are in a comfortable position here. Here come the USA, though. A reminder, it's just the top 3 that get an automatic place in the final. And Bryce Deadman, the American, is swept past all before him. And now America are in fourth, Alison, but the British team in second.
Yeah, and all the work that Tebogo did on that first leg, it's now been eaten up. And Toby Harris has run a fantastic leg for Great Britain. still cementing us in second place. The Japanese on our shoulders, but look at America.
Botswana, Great Britain, Japan, USA, the final leg in the men's 4x400 metres heat. Botswana still have a 20-metre lead, but Charlie Dobson, one of the quickest athletes that Britain's ever produced over 400 metres, looking good in second. Japan, though, nipping at Dobson's heels in third. The question is, will the last leg runner for the USA, Christopher Bailey, get them in an automatic qualifying position? 200 metres to go.
Yeah, Charlie's putting all of his frustration, not getting into the final here, into his relay exploits. But look at Chris Bailey from the United States. He is determined to get into that top three. It's Botswana, Great Britain, now USA battling with Japan.
Botswana are going to win this one. Charlie Dobson turns on the afterburners. The British team in second. Dobson looks over his shoulder. And wow, Japan miss out because the USA picked up the damage and the deficit that 16-year-old Quincy Wilson left them. Norwood, Deadman and Bailey ran a superb race to get the Americans in the final. But for us, the British team, nice and easy. Great Britain through automatically in second spot.
There used to be a big deal when the quartet broke 3 minutes. And I remember the great Roger Black, Mark Richardson, they always used to have, do you remember the sub-3 rings, Kath? If they were in a team that ran 3 minutes, well, the top 4 there smashed that 3-minute barrier. That was some running. As I said, it could have been an Olympic final, and we've still got another semi-final to come.
Can you talk us through the change of the baton in the 4x400? Because it's different, isn't it? There's a lot of waving. Here I am, which is quite sweet. And then are more dropped in the 400 because they're more knackered by the time they get to do the drop? Or
yes.
Is it because they're going slower? That helps them.
It's an interesting question, Adrian. Basically, the difference between a 4x100 metre relay, you have a 30-metre changeover zone and a 20-metre zone to change the baton at high speed. When you have a 4x400 metre relay, what they do is the incoming runner is the position of the outgoing runner to take that waving baton is placed at the 200-metre mark, if that makes sense. So basically, Sam Reardon will run, pass it on to Matthew Hudson-Smith. Then when Matthew Hudson-Smith is at the 200-metre point of his leg, the next British athlete, Toby Harries, will be put in place in a straight line. Think about queuing in a supermarket. You're in a straight line. Oof. And you're not allowed to move from that position. Even if your team sweep through the field, you can't change position, and then you just have to hold your hand really high, shout at your incoming runner to get a move on, and pray that they don't get so tired that you drop the baton.
So somebody's ushering them. Somebody's ushering them into position.
Yep, they put
I'd like to see that.
Yeah, they put the outgoing runner in the position of your team at the 200-metre point of your incoming runner.
And you're allowed to keep your arm on the when you're stood in that supermarket queue. You're allowed to keep your arm in the person in front of you, just to keep that racing room. And obviously very different to the 4x1. You're looking at your incoming runner, and you're actually having to judge the speed of your incoming runner so that you kind of get a bit of a go at it, so you're not from a standing start. You've got a bit of flow on it, and it is a technique, and differences can be made in that changeover. Even though you've obviously got 400 metres to run, the differences can come down to changes.
Fascinating stuff. We'll be back with you very shortly. Just want to go to the men's climbing. Maz Faruqi, what have you got for us?
Well, after a strong start from most of these climbers on the first boulder, a lot of them scoring 24.8, 24.4. Mind you, get a tenth of a point deduction for falling off. But if you manage, therefore, to get all the way to the top to score 25, these are good scores. These climbers finding boulders 2 and 3 a lot harder. Hamish MacArthur of Great Britain, the first climber to go in this final, scoring just 9.8 and 9.9 on boulders 2 and 3. You just heard that noise there behind me. That was Toby Roberts, Great Britain's other athlete in this final, falling off the second boulder whilst trying to get that touch on that 25 kind of grasp right at the top of the wall. But worth mentioning that the really big name to listen out for in this final, Sarata and Raku of Japan, just 17 years old, but the top qualifying climber into this final with a flawless performance, 25 points out of 25 on boulder 1. So he is the one to beat But all 4 boulder scores count in this final before we then move on to the lead discipline in this final today, Adrian.
They're funny-looking boulders, aren't they?
They are. They're kind of... They're not really boulders, are they? They're walls with different coloured things to grasp on, to stretch across, to try and hold on to. Such small margins. We were saying this earlier and yesterday, weren't we, Adrian, about how small the areas are that they have to hold on here. And a lot of them holding back on yourself as well. These aren't flat walls. These are inclines at sort of 65 degrees and so forth. So you really are just grasping on with very, very little to hold on to. But these boulders, the format is changed after each round. So this setup now of these boulders in this final is different than what these climbers had to navigate in the semi-final. And they've only got 4 minutes as well to try and get to the top in this, whereas they had 5 minutes in the semi-final. So the kind of setup is ramping up the difficulty at every stage. And we're seeing that now as these climbers try to progress through this bouldering.
So I'm trying to think when I have my stress dreams about this, and I do need an alternative to the running through sand one, so I think it's going to be these. I'm just trying to think which one it will be, the lead or the boulder. What do you think? Which is more traumatic to be stuck in?
Well, I think that the thing about the lead is because you're coming after the bouldering section here, and we're just seeing a close-up of Serato and Raku, the Japanese athlete, the effort that he is putting in,
pressing his face against the wall,
pressing himself up there, trying to almost be sort of Spider-Man holding on, and he's fallen down as well, and now he gets out the sort of the big mop almost, but it's got a chalk tip, hasn't it, to try and dry out, because obviously there's so much sweat as the athletes are clinging on to these boulders. I think that the difference with the lead later on is that obviously by then, because the setup of this final is such that each climber knows what they have to do to try and make sure they get a podium finish. So I think probably boulders 3 and 4, as we look again at somebody falling off one of these, they look really stressful, don't they? I would have absolutely no chance at navigating my way up this wall, I can tell you.
And do the boulder positions change, and the positions of the handholds in the lead? Do they change like on a golf course? The flag position change? Yeah,
it's like the changing the pin position in golf. Absolutely, Adrian. They change them between the semi-final and the final, so they do ramp up the difficulty. And obviously, the climbers can't have any practice at these boulders before they come into this final. They are allowed a 6-minute sort of assessing period where they're all together, and that was quite funny to see them all sort of come and look at the walls, approach them from different angles, have a chat together about how they might tackle some of the really difficult bits. But you're seeing the same pinch points that they're all really struggling with these particular bits as the Japanese number 1 ranked athlete falls off this wall again. So just proving that despite his brilliant start, everyone is finding boulders 2, 3 and 4 at the moment in this final really difficult.
Cheers, Maz. Let's go back to the athletics, Kath.
On the track then, heat number 2 of the men's 4x400 metres relay. Botswana, Britain and the USA automatically got through from the first heat, which was good. Japan ran a national record, and Zambia, they're currently the 2 non-automatic fastest qualifiers so far. But being introduced to the crowd, the teams that line up from lanes 2 to 9 on the specially made beautiful purple track here at the Stade de France. It's another sellout, still with huge spatterings of orange. The Dutch crowd have been amazing here in the Stade de France. India, France, Brazil, Italy, South Africa, Belgium, Nigeria and Spain are the teams that line up in this one. And there's a huge roar because France go in lane number 3. On the first leg, Mohamed Kunta is asking for more noise. He's pumping his, oh my gosh, he's hitting his chest, he's throwing his arms in the air, he's still going, he's asking, and they've responded, still going for more noise. Meanwhile, India in lane number 2, a lot more reserved. Yaria on the first leg for them, just giving us a little bit of a smile. India, of course, picking up a silver medal last night with Chopra in the men's javelin, a brilliant men's javelin competition it was as well. So then, the first 3 will join the British team in the men's 4x400 metre final. And compared to the first heat, I'm going to say this is a lot easier in terms of qualifying as they take to their blocks. The French crowd as excited as ever. And just to mine and Alison's right are the athletes who are waiting in their pens in order, who will be ushered on for the next leg. And you can hear the chanting from the French crowd. It's Kunter's fault. He's revved them up. They're ready to go. There's the roar for heat number 2 of the men's 4x400 metre relay. The first 3 guaranteed a place in the final. Well, the Frenchman needs to get going here after building up the crowd, because he's being left at the moment by the Brazilian first leg runner Carvello, one of the quickest in this field, Alison, and also in this one, Italy moving nicely at the halfway point.
Well, the crowd definitely helped the females get through to the final in the women's 4x4 earlier, and the French athlete really responded to the roar there. So can they do the same for the men? They're certainly way down at the moment. He's got an awful lot of work to do. It looks like the Belgians are in the lead. South Africa, I thought they might bring in their Van der Kerk, but they haven't got him in, the world record holder, so they're going to have a real hard time of getting into the getting into the final without him.
Belgium lead this one. Dylan Borlée. You cannot have a World Championship or Olympic Games without at least 2 Borlée brothers in a Belgium team. And Dylan's moving nicely down the back straight. Nigeria in second. But all of a sudden, it is squashed into 6 metres. This is absolutely carnage here. Everybody vying for positions as they come into the home straight. Belgium lead.
Well, this is going to be a fantastic race. Certainly very different to the first heat. But Belgium and Borlée pulling away with Nigeria in second. And look at the Spaniard having to cross over. He hasn't sighted his runner. He's had to cross over in front of everyone else. And there's our faller. That's what happens.
Down. But Belgium still lead. Out of trouble. Belgium, Nigeria. The French team now in an automatic qualifying position. Down the back straight in this second heat of the men's 4x4. This is tasty. But Belgium, with Florent Milebi on their third leg, are leading this one by 3 metres. Nigeria in second.
Yeah, it was the South African athlete that hit the deck there. It was Nortje of South Africa, and he's really desperately trying to get back onto this race, but he's way down. Belgium running away with it, and as you can hear in the roar of the crowd, France in second.
Belgium, France, Nigeria, they're the top 3 spots at the moment, but Italy are on their shoulder. Edoardo Scotti for them on the final leg. The Italian's getting excited here. He's gone into lane number 2, he's gone into third place, but down the back straight, France are now leading Belgium with Italy in third, and Nigeria are on the hunt in fourth. 200 metres to go in this second heat of the men's 4x4. France are roaring. Fabrizio Sedi is leading this second heat for them. Belgium in second and Nigeria now in third. Just the top 3 guaranteed a place in the final. And the French crowd go wild. They are going to be in the Olympic men's 4x4 final. France win, Belgium in second, Nigeria in third.
What a race. I mean, you called it, Kath, and actually we were talking to Adrian about the importance of these changeovers. Well, what didn't help was the Spaniard athlete, who completely hadn't sighted his runner. He ran a cracking last 200 metres, got himself a couple of positions higher, and then realised that his athlete was stood out in about the 5th position, so just crossed over everybody else, and that changeover was absolute carnage. And it ended up with the South African hitting the deck, picking up the baton, and then trying to get back onto that race, because I would have expected the South Africans to be up there vying for one of those top 3 positions, but it was France that were roared home by the stadium.
Is there not going to be a steward's inquiry now over? I mean, who was it you said who crossed over everyone? I mean, I'd want a word with him.
You've got to keep the thing is, you've got to keep your racing room and racing line. And it was I think it was Garcia, that just crossed over. But what we're looking at, the replay, the South African got the baton. His racing line is directly kind of onto the curve, and the Spaniard sort of cut in front of him and just clipped his heels and went down. I mean, you would argue that it's racing. Look, without a doubt, the South Africans will put in a protest. Whether they get put through, I'm not so sure, because
He just didn't follow the rule book. I spoke earlier, didn't I, Adrian, about the carnage, and the officials usher the athletes who are going to take the baton in place at the 200-metre point. What the athlete didn't do, as Alison said, was sight his runner. And what that means is when you swing into the home straight, you have to look at where your compatriot is. You have to, and then you have to move accordingly. Yeah. He didn't do it until lastminute.com, and therefore
just let me check I
absolute
understand.
messy.
Let me check I understand. So say you're in 5th position, which I think he was.
Yes.
At the 200-metre mark, then you know that your man's going to be in lane 5.
Yeah, or in 5th place when the officials line them up. So you know he's not going to be on the inside line of 1. Yeah. He's going to be 5th position. So you start to move as an athlete to give him the baton in 5th place, which will roughly be, as you say, Adrian, about lane 5. That is what you have to do, and you're not allowed to move out of that line when the official puts you there, whatever position your incoming runner is in. It's the incoming runner's responsibility to navigate his way to you with the baton, and it was a kind of right-hand turn at the last minute that caused the problems there, because that's what the Spaniard didn't do.
To us watching, obviously, we're like, why didn't he do that? He's operating at 44-second pace. His head is really not thinking. And I think that's it. This is when mistakes are made at high speed. And it wasn't so much the incoming runner crossing over, it was actually the outgoing runner that made the mistake by cutting in on the South African athlete. But he was definitely quicker, and I think the South African athlete thought he had the room there and just clipped his heels and just went down.
I'm coming to the final of this actually on Saturday, and I was excited anyway, but I can't wait now. Now I've become a baton aficionado with your help.
Well, I think you could see something close to a world record, because I think when they bring in the big guns, America of Quincy Hall, their Olympic champion, there's a real chance that they can go close to the best American team that we've ever seen back in 1993, which obviously back then had the great Michael Johnson. So, yeah, I think we'll certainly be seeing an Olympic record, and it could be close to a world record, and hopefully a medal for Great Britain.
What happened in the women's heats in this distance relay earlier?
The women's heats were, again, it was an America heading the way into the final, but Great Britain with basically just our relay specialists getting us through to the final. So we've got Amber Anning running in the individual 400-metre final this evening. Without doubt, we will bring her in. We've got Lavia Nielsen, the option of bringing her in, just missed out on the final, running a really, really good 50.5 in the semi-final. And then we've got Victoria Harugu, which, she also just missed out making the final. So if we bring in any of our big guns from the individual 400 metres, I think there's a real opportunity for a medal in the women's.
Okay, we can listen to the team's reaction to their second finish in their 4x400 relay heat behind the USA. Here they are, talk to Sarah Moore-Kerins.
Yeah, safely through to the final. Yemi Mary, I'll start with you. How did you find it, the whole experience as well, getting to run out there?
It was incredible. I absolutely loved the energy. I expect no less from the Olympics, but yeah, energy was great. It was really loud on that start line, so got a little scared I wouldn't hear that set, but got through it, and yeah, super happy.
And Hannah, for you, on your leg, you could see the USA chasing them down. How did you control yourself within that?
Yeah, we always knew they were going to get off hard, but just to run my race, get out hard, and just stick to my game plan, that's what I did. Hannah and Jodie in a good position, so yeah, very happy.
And all the experience, Jodie, coming through, how good was it to put that in out there?
It was so good, just enabled me to stay calm. I've been out there before, like you said, and just wanted to make sure I gave a good position to Lena, held our thing, and make sure we came in that top 2.
And it was a real fight to the line, Lena.
The plan was for us to come second behind the USA, as close as possible. I knew France was closing because the crowd got louder, and so I just said, just keep striding to the line. The Belgian girl kind of stopped halfway through.
Yeah, I was wondering about that, about 200 to go.
I felt the brakes get put on, so I had to go wide. I'm sure I ran in lane 2 for the whole bend, but yeah, the plan was to finish in the top 2 because our girls in a good position for the final.
Congratulations, through to the final.
Thank you.
Let's go back to let's go back with Kath and Alison now. Have we got Katerina throwing yet?
We have. She is ready and poised, javelin in hand, doing a roll of the neck. The heptathlon leader here in Paris has put her implement above her head because she has 3 throws in the javelin part of this heptathlon. She had a massive personal best in the shot put yesterday. Let's see how much her javelin's improved. The event leader goes KJT throw number 1. She's never the most aggressive of throwers, but it's about 45 metres for KJT. She's got a season's best of 44.88, Alison, and a lifetime best of only 46.14. So I think that's what we call a solid start for KJT.
That is certainly better than her first attempt in the long jump, so I will take that any day. Anything close to a lifetime best would be brilliant here. That looks about 45 metres. We just wait for the results to come up. I think the telling point is Anna Hall of America, who will be a real threat to the medals. Did a no mark in the first, and I didn't actually see it, so I don't know whether it was an intentional stepped over the line, and when she threw, she just decided she didn't want it measured. 44.64, so just shy of 45 metres. That is solid throwing. That will now just give her a calmness to now just let's release the big one. Let's get something big here.
And Nafi Thiam, Adrian, who is obviously the one chomping at the heels, the two-time Olympic champion from Belgium, is such a better thrower that she'll be going in Group B in about an hour's time, because the weaker throwers are going in Group A, and then Nafi Thiam will get a chance to respond in about an hour's time. But a good start for KJT there with the first throw.
So how kind of badly can she do in this? Because she's not going to win this part of the heptathlon, is she?
No,
but how far back can she go without jeopardising her chances?
Well, that's a perfect first throw with 2 more to come. Her best ever is 46 metres, so it's pretty much you against your best. And 44 metres 60, almost 45 metres, 1.5 metres down on her best ever. That will give her the confidence to just start kind of pushing it, really pulling off the shackles and just saying, let's just let this the trouble is with the javelin, if you get too excited, you can sky it, where the tail end of the javelin kind of goes right up in the air and it almost just plops down in front. So she kind of has to get the flight of the javelin right. So you've got to contain the adrenaline and remember the technique. It's such a technique-driven throwing event, javelin. So she needs to just keep herself contained, but I think she's got the potential, putting some of the speed that we've seen in the runway on the long jump, putting some of the speed that she's seen in the shot put circle, putting that into the javelin run up, and if she can get over a lifetime best, that puts the pressure onto TM.
Okay, but she won't be marked on a lifetime best. She doesn't get points for that. She gets points on where she's ranked in this event, doesn't she? So
absolutely.
So
it's the
if
distance.
she finishes 5th, is that adequate here, or?
It's all about the distance. It's all about what she throws.
Right,
that's what equates to the points she will get.
On the track. Let's wait for the gun. Here we go. Because it's semi-final time, the men's 800 metres, the first 2 and the next 2 fastest get to the final tomorrow, and we have British interest throughout these semi-finals. In this first one, Ben Patterson, the Commonwealth bronze medalist in Birmingham a couple of years ago. The 22-year-old has just started out in lane number 7 here, Alison, and in these semi-finals it is pretty cutthroat, because as I said, just the first 2 automatically go through, and you could throw a blanket at the 200-metre point over this field. But Kramer, the Swede, has now said, right, I've had enough here, I need to speed this one up, and he's leading into the straight.
Yeah, because they know the danger man in here is the world leader, Sajati of Algeria, and he is just sitting comfortably at the back of this field. He's slowly moving up. Ben Patterson perfectly placed as they hit the bell. 400 metres to go. He's in 5th.
Kramer in the bright yellow shirt of Sweden, long legs leading this one. Brandon Miller of the USA currently in second. Mark English, for Ireland in third. And Ben Patterson with the short cropped hair currently is in 5th place, a world medalist last year in Budapest. Just the first 2 guaranteed a place in the final. The Briton needs to make a move here.
Yeah, Sadati's just past Ben Patterson. Ben Patterson needs to sit in his slipstream as he moves through, and he's doing exactly that. It's Mark English of Ireland leading, Sajati second.
Ireland leading, Ben Patterson starting to make his move. He swings into lane 2, but there's still about 7 athletes that can qualify here. The British athletes currently in third. The Italians coming on the inside. Ben Patterson's not going to get an automatic qualifying spot. Sadaci wins this one and gets pushed in the back by Takushin from Italy, who says, sorry, I didn't mean to do that, I was just charging for the line, because he's finished third. But it looks like Ben Patterson's probably in fourth place in this one and will not get an automatic qualifying spot for the semi-final. Indeed, Algeria, Botswana, Italy in third, Ben Patterson in fourth at 1:45.57, which is over 3 seconds down, Alison, on a time that he's ran this year.
Yeah, there's no way 1:45.57 sadly is going to get him through to the final, because the other two semi-finals to come will have seen the results there, and they know they've got to go quicker if they're not going to get into the top two. That is that's devastation for the man who took a medal last year, Ben Patterson, and I think our greatest hope for getting into the final here. Tactically, that's probably the worst race I've seen him run, because he knew very early on that wasn't going to be a quick race, and he didn't get himself into the top two. He hit the bell in fifth place. He left himself with an awful lot of work to do. Such a shame for the young guy.
Second fastest man of all time, Adrian, this year, Ben Patterson. He sits behind Seb Cohen above Steve Cram on the British all-time list. He was a medal hope, but he didn't have the zip and the speedy sprint finish that he normally has. And as Alison said, I don't think there's any way that 1:45 clocking is going to get him through to the final.
So who have we got in the next semi-final?
Next semi-final is Elliot Giles, one of Berkshire Harrier's finest, who was drafted in at the last minute to replace injured Jake Whiteman. Elliot Giles, on a camping holiday with his wife and kids, has been brought in, and he qualified for the semi-final. So Elliot Giles goes up in the next one, and in the third and final semi-final, Max Bergen goes.
Thank you very much. We're back with you shortly. Let's just get a news bulletin at just gone 10:30.
The voice of the UK.
This is BBC Radio 5 Live.
BBC News on 5 Live, I'm Bethan Holmes. Police in Belfast say they dealt with a number of race-related hate crimes and incidents in the city last night. A car was set on fire and windows were smashed at 2 properties, and officers had objects thrown at them for a second night. The UK government says it's in a state of high readiness for the possibility of further unrest over the weekend in England, even though there was far less violence over the past couple of days than previously feared. Victims of historical miscarriages of justice have been told they won't be refunded money that was deducted from their compensation to cover bed and board while they were in prison. Last year, the Conservative government said these deductions wouldn't happen in the future, but ministers say the change won't apply to people who've already received payouts. And a fourth person has been arrested in connection with an alleged plot to attack Taylor Swift concerts in Vienna. The 18-year-old Iraqi citizen is an acquaintance of the main suspect, a 19-year-old Austrian.
5 Live Breakfast
With Rachel Burden and Rick Edwards.
Hello, Richard. And I suppose Rachel.
What is that about?
I don't know.
Only being less than 0.2 of a second away from it stings a little bit, but that's what keeps us coming back for more.
Did you get to enjoy it at the time? Is it fun to be involved in something like that?
No.
That was me going as fast as I could possibly go.
We absolutely
We do
loved
love
it.
you.
So
We love you.
chuffed
Thank
for
you so
feeling.
much. Thank you.
That was some fantastic sporting action.
5 Live Breakfast.
Listen weekdays from 6
On BBC Sounds.
Paris 2024, the Olympic Games.
With Adrian Chiles.
On BBC Radio 5 Live.
Let's go back to the athletics. KJT's second throw.
Yeah, she's up shortly after a first round throw of 44 metres and 64. That picked her up 757 points. She was leading coming in to this discipline on this second day of the heptathlon, and is still leading overall with 5,787 points. But this is Group A of the javelin. The better throwers, including Nafi Tiam, will come straight after this group. But KJT is ready and poised. The bright spikes, the long ponytail down the back of the Liverpool FC fans' dark blue British kit. So, talking through the throw in her mind, 44.64 was a solid opener for KJT. The minute clock is ticking back. Here she goes. Throw number 2. Let's see if it's an improvement. No, she stalled that one. That one's kind of gone vertically, which javelins are not supposed to do, and it drops below the 40-metre line. She steps over and gets a red flag, so she'll have that 44.64 throw on her first effort as her best, with one more throw to come.
Yeah, she did exactly that. She sort of tailed it, as we call it, where she sort of just got the flight all wrong, and when she released the javelin, it was the kind of the tail end of the javelin went upwards, and just that just kind of came down and plopped down well below the 40-metre line, so she didn't even want that measured, so she walked over the line, and it's now registered as a no mark. So one more attempt to try and better that first round throw for Katarina Johnson-Thompson, and can she get close to a lifetime best?
You're going to get fed up with me now for keep asking the same question, but I'm still not sure I understand the point scoring, mainly because I made the mistake of looking on Twitter. But it says, in fact, KJT will need to improve her javelin personal best of 46.14 metres to get the gold medal. But is that right?
No. If she gets close to 46 metres, that just means she's getting more points. So 46 metres would give her probably about another 50 odd points.
Right.
So it's all about her point score. At the moment, she's leading with 5,787 points. Nuovitz of Belgium is second, and Anna Hall is third. Now the problem is Thiam hasn't started throwing the javelin yet. She's in the next javelin pool because she's a better javelin thrower. So when Thiam then throws, she will then get into that mix, and we very much expect her to go ahead of Katarina Johnson-Thompson. It then comes down to the 800 metres, and basically it's a point score. How many seconds Katarina Johnson-Thompson will need to be ahead of Thiam in order to get the gold medal. That's what it'll come down to. It never used to matter with Daley Thompson because he'd already pretty much won the decathlon by the 1500 metres, and there was too much work that Jürgen Hintzen had to do. We were talking like 15-20 seconds he had to beat Daley by, and he was never a good 1500 metre runner. So Daley knew when he stood on the start line of the 15 that he had this one. Tonight this is going to come down to the 800 metres. I think it's something like 8 or 9 seconds between Katarina Johnson-Thompson and Thiam. She's a better 800 runner than Thiam. So Thiam's got to maximise her points lead on the javelin when she knows she's a better thrower than Kat. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. It absolutely does. So we don't know what the challenger is going to throw, but
exactly.
KJT's got enough points in the bag for not for us not to get too worried now. But a few more would be nice if she can throw a bit further.
Exactly. We know that Thiam is over 50 metres in the javelin. We know that. We're not expecting Kat to throw anywhere close to that. But if she can just better what she's already done, there's a real opportunity that gap is going to be harder to make up in the 800.
Second semi-final of the men's 800 metres has just got underway. Elliot Giles starts on the outside, the second of three Brits in the semi-final here. Ben Patterson won't be going through to the final, the all-time British number 2, finishing way down in his semi-final to not qualify. But Elliot Giles, Alison Kirbishley's got himself in a good position here in second place on the shoulder of the South African Tuplis.
Yeah, and hopefully Elliot will have already seen that first heat, and it was done 1 in 1:45, and he knows that's well within his compass. So he knows that if he doesn't get in the top 2, he's got to give himself a chance of getting a fastest loser spot, a non-automatic qualifying spot, of which there are 2. So as we go into the bell, Elliot Giles sitting on the shoulder of the Frenchman Tual in third place.
Elliot Giles was in a good place in lane number 2, but he's now got boxed in on the inside line, the British athlete. He is in third place as they go down the back straight. Just the top 2 qualify automatically. He's got to get out of this traffic, Elliot Giles. He's sitting with 6 other athletes at the moment as they go down the back straight, and it speeds up. The Briton in 4th.
He's just not got to panic. He's got the world champion and Arup ahead of him. We knew that's what would happen. He's got Duplessis of South Africa leading, but he's battling with the Frenchman Tual as he comes into the home straight.
The South African leads. Arup, the big Canadian, in second. Elliot Giles has a free run here, but he's in 4th place. It looks like the Britain's going to not qualify automatically for the Olympic final. He's going to finish in 5th. Elliot Giles, and a photo finish for the first 2 athletes to get into that Olympic final, and maybe Tual of France and Arup of Canada, who's given himself a round of applause, have got through. But in the second semi-final, the second Brit will not go through to the men's 800-metre final. Elliot Giles out of the automatic qualifying spots, and he's looking up at the big screen, Alison. Wow, that's 2 down with 1 to go, with obviously Max Bergen left in the third semi.
Yeah, that's such a shame. I mean, it sort of set itself up to be a quicker semi-final. It ended up being slower. Arup coming away, the world champion, commanding that heat, but Tual using the power and the energy of the crowd to run himself into that automatic second spot. But yeah, such a shame to see Elliot Giles just run out of legs in the final stages of that race, and 1:45.29 for the Kenyan. He will be hoping to get through as a fastest loser now.
Thank you very much. Let's go to the climbing. Maz, what's happening?
Well, nothing will put into focus, Adrian, just how difficult this climbing final is, more than the sight of these athletes attempting to reach the small 360 ball right at the top left of the fourth boulder. The only way to get there is to sort of swing across, grasping with your right hand like a pendulum to try and build momentum, and then the leap of faith to try and hold on. Hamish MacArthur of Great Britain not quite making it. He has completed his 4 boulders with an overall score of 53.9 out of a possible 100, which is quite solid, I think, that given the difficulty level of this final. He is 4th at the moment. GB's other athlete in this final, Toby Roberts, recovering really well on his 3rd boulder after a climb. He scored 24.8 out of 25, way better than anyone else was able to score on that boulder. That's put him 3rd in the standings at the moment. The USA's Colin Duffy leads at the moment, but he's completed his 4 boulders. Japan's 17-year-old Serato and Ranku in 2nd, and Ranku and Roberts the only athletes yet to tackle this 4th boulder. So GB's athletes in a strong position in this final at the moment.
Thanks, Maz. Team GB's 4x400 metre relay men will compete for gold in the final. They finished 2nd in their heat. Well done them. Here they are speaking to Sarah Mulkerrins.
Safely through to the final. Sam, you're enjoying these relays?
I am. It's good fun with these boys and the girls in the mixed. I think relay's so fun, and as the first Olympic experience, being part of the relay team is so good. Luck for these guys. Matt with the silver medal in the individual. It's like looking up to these guys for a long time. So to be here with them, it's dream come true.
Matt, how did you find that after your exploits in the individual?
I've only had like 48 hours of no sleep, so I'm fried. I think I'm going to be sick.
Well, not that way.
Yeah, that was hard, but honestly, we've got a great group of lads. I'm going to be sick, so I'm going to let him go.
Well done. Toby, for you, how did you find that experience?
Yeah, it was different than my other relay eggs that I normally run. I'm normally right behind someone chasing, so to have a massive gap between me and the Botswanans was it was a new experience. It was a new pressure to not blast out down the back straight, what I normally do. Because if I'd done that, I would have really, really died coming home. So I managed to hold my own and then just keep us in position. But, we wanted maybe a little bit faster, but it's the heat, and we maintained the position and we're through the final. So
all important to get through. And Charlie, for you on that anchor leg, were you kind of controlling, maintaining it so you had enough coming home?
Yeah, definitely. I think, last leg in the heat especially, it's just don't lose position really, With the rest of the boys did a good enough job to get us into the position I needed, and then just hold on basically, I put them close to me, but just held some in reserve for the home straight. It's good.
Well, best of luck. You're in that final. Well done.
Thank you very much. Cheers.
Amazing effort from them. Can I just ask you, Kath and Alison, the politics of substitutions for the final? So you can run your legs off to get into the final, then your place can go to somebody else. Does that not cause bad blood, or is it just a metric who's running quicker?
No, because you know that the quartet are going to get a medal. So even if you do get subbed in, your exploits and your role in the team has been recognised. But you know that you're running for a place in the final. So Toby Harris, they'll all be looking now. The selection will come down to the likes of Martin Rooney and Darren Campbell, the relay coaches, and the team will have taken splits and they will analyse those and they will work out the best person for the best leg, because that's the other thing. It's not just about having your 4 quickest. It's knowing who's a chaser, who's great on that last leg, who's a solid first leg runner, who will give you an absolutely great setup, because you're also running against the flow of a relay is so key, isn't it, Kath?
It is, and it's also about man and woman management as well, Adrian, of how you tell an athlete that you might be crushing their dreams if they think they've run really well, and you have to say to them, look, thanks for that, but we're bringing so-and-so in. And back in mine and Alison's day, they didn't used to do it very well. We used to get notes under our door of whether we were going to be running in a final or not. So the way that you deliver the news to an athlete in a sprint relay or a 4x4 relay is really, really important. But most athletes know what their role is going to be. You know, Toby Harries will know the chances are he might not be running in the final because somebody else might have to come in, which isn't the case in the men's 4x4, by the way, because we ran both Matt Hudson-Smith and Charlie Dobson. But it is, you run for a place. You say, listen, look at me, look at my split in this relay. This is why I deserve a place. And sometimes it does go your way because it has to. Sometimes it goes your way because there's injuries in warm-up and then somebody has to be drafted in. But the way you deal with the athletes and how you tell them, for me, it is one of the biggest things.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, the only one will be Alex Haydock-Wilson, and I'm not sure why he got rested. He might be carrying something or could be ill, because he was part of the bronze medal mixed relay team. So he's the one that the fact that we brought Matt Hudson-Smith in after he was saying he's now off to be sick. But as I talk now, we've got Katarina Johnson-Thompson at the end of the javelin runway. Kath, her final chance to make a difference here.
Yep, first throw of 44.64 is her best effort. The point of that javelin right on the same eye line above the freckles of KJT. Here she goes. She had a no throw on her second throw. Her last effort in this javelin element. It's got a better flight on it. Very similar in distance. She steps back 3 or 4 steps. Javelin throwers just lean their head to the left as they're analysing it as it flies off through the air here in the Stade de France. The right hand whipped through, the right arm whipped through. Has she improved? 45 metres and 45 metres, over 45 metres. So that's an improvement for her in terms of points that she'll get. 45.49, 773 points. Solid. We've used that a lot with KJT, but we'll take it, Al. It's solid.
Hey, look, it's another season's best for her. Just shy of a personal best. That, I think, is the sort of confidence that she needs to take into the 800 metres. Now she's got to sit back, because Tiam will be lining up in the next half an hour to start the second pool of javelin throwers, which are the better javelin throwers, and she'll have to see what Tiam can throw and then what cushion she will have going into the 800 metres, and that's when we can get the mathematician brain out and work out what the points difference will equate to in terms of 800 metre times.
Can I ask you something? Another metric that appears on the screen is the angle of the flight as on launch of the javelin, and that last one was 35.01 degrees. Is that what are we looking for?
Is there
an optimum?
Yeah,
thingy?
I think it's anything between that sort of 35 and 40 degree trajectory. Anything further, everything, it's basically just physics. So you kind of want that, you want that javelin, that kind of spear to just penetrate through the air, use the speed that you've created on the run-up, and then just transfer it into this flight of a javelin. And when we look at the big guys throwing it last night, and it was going out to 92 metres. I mean, it was just phenomenal to watch. But yeah, it is all about physics and not getting too excited and skying the javelin. It's getting it absolutely perfectly right.
Athletes on their mark for the final semi-final of the men's 800 metres. Here we go then. KJT leading that heptathlon. She's done and dusted until the final event. 5,803 points for her. And she will wait, as Alison said, to see what Nafi Tiam does later. Then we can crunch the numbers of how much she's got to beat Nafi Tiam by in the 800 metres to win Olympic gold. Talking of British athletes, Max Bergen then swings across down the back straight here. The Halifax athlete in this third semi-final. Elliot Giles and Ben Patterson have failed to qualify for the Olympic 800 metre final. And Max Bergen Allison settling into second place behind Wanyoni of Kenya in a good position the British athlete as they come down the purple track here in the Stade de France.
Yeah, Max Bergen, our last hope of getting a man into the final out of a very, very good trio of athletes that we brought. But Max Bergen perfectly positioned, 50.92. Bryce Hoppel of America goes onto his shoulder. It's 3 for 2 places at the moment.
The British athlete in third. He was the third fastest athlete in the world last year, Max Bergen. He's in third place in this final semi-final, but he needs to get in the top 2 automatically to make the Olympic final. Bergen in third, looks over his right shoulder. Keep your eyes forward here, Max. You've got to get in the top 2 automatically. Wanyonyi's leading this one. Hoppel's in the mix. Crestan of Belgium as well. 120 metres to go. Max Bergen holding the inside line here. He's got to get himself into the top 2. Wanyonyi and Hoppel. Bergen trying to make a move. The Britons battling for a third spot here. Max Bergen with a sprint finish here. Is he going to be able to pass Hoppel? No, he's not, but he's finished in third, and Wanyonyi of Kenya wins that heat. Bryce Hoppel of the USA in second, and Max Bergen. Let's have a look at the times here, Alison, because we need the next 2 non-automatic qualifiers to make the men's Olympic final. Kenya 1:43.32, Bryce Hoppel 1:43.41, a lifetime best of 1:43.50 seconds for Max Bergen, and what a time to run your fastest ever 800 metres.
Well done, Max Bergen. That was so sensible. He didn't lose his head. He just kept his racing brain switched on. When Bryce Hoppel got onto his shoulder and went in front of him, he didn't panic. Crestan from Belgium was there. He was really trying to put pressure on the young 22-year-old. But Max Bergen held his own, came back like a train. 1:43.50, the 2 quickest non-automatic qualifiers that come from that heat. He's in the final.
Yeah, there's 2 huge screens in the Stade de France, Adrian. The big Q means you're automatically through, but if you look up, which Max Bergen has just done, and seen a little small lowercase q against your name, it means you're in the Olympic final, and he is through. 1 Briton through in the men's 800.
Well done him. Talk to you shortly. Let's catch up with the climbing, Maz.
The boulder discipline of this climbing final, Adrian, Great Britain's Toby Roberts is in bronze medal position, just ahead of his GB teammate Hamish MacArthur, who sits just outside the medals. But the top 3 in this final have a bit of a cushion over the rest now. There's a 10-point gap effectively in the scores for the top 3, and then those underneath in the bottom 5. So Toby Roberts of Great Britain on 63.1 out of a possible 100 points. Silver medal position is Colin Duffy of USA on 68.3, with 17-year-old Sarato Anraku of Japan out in front on 69.3. So pretty close between the top 3. Now we move into the lead discipline in this final. The further up the wall you get, the more you score, but the highest scorers go last. So we'll go in reverse order. So Toby Roberts will be going 5th out of these 8 athletes. Colin Duffy Toby Roberts will be going 6th, Colin Duffy 7th, Sarato Anraku 8th, and they will know what they need to do to try and finish in the medal positions. So looking good for a medal perhaps for GB in this climbing final.
OK, so when's the pinch point then? When do we get to that?
So we go underway. That these guys get a bit of a break now because it looks absolutely exhausting. I think we go in this lead final in the next 20 minutes, and obviously we start, as we say, in reverse order. So we've probably got about 20-25 minutes until our Brits go again in the lead discipline.
I was just looking at the stadium there. It's beautifully done, isn't it? You've got these huge structures. I'm just seeing a wide shot of it. I mean, you wouldn't have thought it'd be a great spectator sport, but it's just looking that way to me.
Well, just like with all the other events at these Paris Games, and the guys were talking about it in the last hour with Nikki as well, everything's been so well attended, so well supported. There is so much support for all of these athletes, and this climbing is one of the kind of really new sports, isn't it, into the Olympic programme, and it just kind of really suits the way that they're trying to get kind of younger people invested into the Olympic Games. They've always got the music going, the countdown as well of how long each athlete has got to try and navigate their way up the wall, just ramping up the tension. But it is actually turning out to be a really good sport to watch. But the difficulty levels are so tough. And you can see perhaps on the angle that you can see these pictures at the same way as I can, Adrian. Just demonstrates there that when we say walls, they're not flat walls. These are ones at an incline with such a lean back for these athletes that they are just hanging off their fingertips as they get further up that wall. And that thing there that they can see now, we can see now the top of that wall. It's about 15 metres high, this lead wall. The very top is the blue. That's the highest scoring area. And those top three certainly, and that obviously includes Toby Roberts of Great Britain, if they want to have a podium finish, that is where they're going to have to try and navigate their way up to.
And is this a new configuration we've got on there?
Again, this will be different from the semi-final. So Toby Roberts doing really well in the semi-final, finishing second out of these possible 8, just behind 17-year-old Sarato and Rako of Japan. But now this wall will be very, very different from the one that they got through in the semi-final. And again, they're not allowed to try it until they get to the final. And you only get the one chance. You fall off, that is it. So there is so much at stake for these athletes when they come out and try and attempt this lead in the next 15 minutes or so.
Extraordinary. Thanks, Maz. To the golf. Ian?
And the big names starting to muster now and get themselves ready. We've just seen Nelly Corder, Adrian, just take her first tee shot. She had an awful finish to her round yesterday after climbing up into silver medal position, a quadruple bogey 7 at the par 3 16th, horrible 3-putt at the 17th, and tumbled down the leaderboard to 2 under par, alongside Rose Zhang, her American compatriot, who's just underway. And that means that Corder is 6 shots off the lead, which is held by the world number 137, Morgan Metro of Switzerland, after her 66 yesterday. For me, the favourite is the Chinese player, former world number 1, Ruoning Ying, who won the Women's PGA last year. 65 yesterday was the lowest round of the day, and at 7 under par, just 1 shot behind. But Lydia Ko from New Zealand really has some unfinished business with the Olympics. Silver in Rio, bronze in Tokyo, so she wants the full set, and at 5 under par in third place, just 3 shots behind. And again, I've been saying this for the last 2 days, Adrian, but there's just not really much to get excited about from a British point of view. Our 2 players are out on the course at the moment. A lot breezier today, not much low scoring, and level par in the first 5 holes for Georgia Hall, so she's at 4 over par, and Charlie Hull level par through 10 holes, she's at 8 over.
Thank you very much, Ian Carter at the golf. We'll be back very shortly with the 3 semi-finals in the women's 100 metres hurdles, amongst lots of other stuff, and the climax of that incredible climbing competition. Can't wait. Better get a news bulletin now, though. It's exactly 11 o'clock.
The voice of the UK.
This is BBC Radio 5 Live.
With the 5 Live News, I'm Nick Hatfield. Police in Belfast say they've dealt with a number of race-related hate crimes last night. A car was set on fire and a group of masked men threw bricks at officers. There were no reports of any injuries. Last night, the Prime Minister told police chiefs to remain on high alert for more unrest. Nusrat Mehtab is a former Metropolitan Police Superintendent.
These people have been arrested within 24 or 48 hours. Their details have been put over national TV, social media. People have lost their jobs. Everybody knows who they are. I think that's played a big part. I think the community coming out and doing counter-protesting and saying, no, these are our streets, you're not going to be doing that, that helped.
Victims of historic miscarriages of justice have been told by the government they must have their bed and board costs deducted from their compensation payments. Last year, the Conservatives scrapped the deductions from all future payouts, but historic victims are unable to claim the money back. Police bosses are warning that organised criminal groups are targeting empty shops and pubs in town centres to grow cannabis on an industrial scale. The National Police Chiefs Council says dozens of venues have been raided in the past year. In one of them, hundreds of cannabis plants were found in a disused building in Monmouthshire. Sergeant Dan Wise is from Gwent Police.
There's no logic, is there, to Andrew Malkinson, who has had a wrongful conviction, not having the deduction made, and Paul Blackburn having the deduction made.
Sorry, that is not Sergeant Dan Wise there. We'll continue, though. Ukraine says it's hit a military airfield deep inside Russia overnight. The airstrike comes as Ukraine continues a cross-border offensive against Russia. Kyiv hasn't directly commented on the operation. And a fourth teenager has been arrested in connection with planned attacks on Taylor Swift concerts in Vienna. Austrian officials say the 18-year-old Iraqi citizen was detained last night.
If you're looking for laughs,
Lash.
BBC iPlayer's got you covered.
All right, what's secured? This is where the magic happens.
With over 3,000 episodes of comedy favourites.
They make for great entertainers.
Including The Office, Gavin and Stacey, Two Doors Down, and many more.
Oh, what is that? Whoa. Put my stapler inside a jelly again.
Bring on the laughs.
What are you laughing at?
Watch on BBC iPlayer.
The Olympic Games, Paris 2024.
With Adrian Chiles.
On BBC Audio 5 Live.
Hello and welcome to day 14 of the Olympic Games, where Katarina Johnson-Thompson has finished her heptathlon javelin discipline. Catherine Merry?
She does. KJT has finished the javelin and still leads this Olympic heptathlon with one event to go. She now waits to see what her rival Nafi Thiam of Belgium has, who throws shortly. It's all going to come down to the 800 metres tonight.
And in the men's boulder and Leeds final in the climbing, British hopes are still alive, Maz?
They are. Toby Jones of Great Britain is in bronze medal position in the men's climbing final. He collected a score of 63.1, so he's behind Colin Duffy of the USA in silver and Sarato and Raku of Japan, who sits top of the leaderboard after the boulder discipline. With the lead to come, Hamish MacArthur sits just outside the medal positions at the moment.
Attention will turn later to the velodrome, where Team GB will be hoping to repeat their successes of Tokyo.
Laura Kenny almost with a smile on her face in the back straight. She leaves the rest of the field for dust, punches the air in delight and wins the gold for Great Britain.
We'll continue to bring you every Team GB medal live here on 5 Live. You can also follow events on the BBC Sport website and app, or watch on BBC One or the iPlayer.
Paris 2024, the Olympic Games.
With Adrian Chiles.
On BBC Audio 5 Live.
Back to the athletics. We're watching the second half, the better javelin throwers. Kath, Alison.
Yep, they're warming up, that's fair to say, Adrian. It is the better pool of javelin throwers starting shortly after Katarina Johnson-Thompson's pool have concluded. They've left, they've took their bags, they've took their rubbish, and now obviously Nafi Thiam will be out shortly, and she'll be warming up to try and get a throw to stay in touch with KJT before that 800 metres. And as I just said, it's going to come down to the 800 metres tonight to see who gets Olympic gold. Will it be KJT with her first, or will it be Nafi Thiam of Belgium with her third? On the track, though, we have now the semi-finals of the women's 100 metre hurdles. 3 semi-finals, the same as the men's 800 metres. The first 2 automatically will get through to the Olympic final, and then the next 2 non-automatic qualifiers. Max Bergin, the only British athlete to get through to the men's 800 metre final just a few moments ago. And Cindy Sember, the British athlete, will be the representative in semi-final number 3, trying to get into the Olympic final. But semi-final number 1 are settling in their blocks. Morrison of Liberia, Abdul Rashid of Canada, Stark of the USA, Danielle Williams, 2 times the world champion of Jamaica, goes in 5. The world record holder Amusam of Nigeria goes in 6. Devon Charlton goes in 7. Skoroska of Poland in 8. And Tanaka of Japan in 9. They settle in. The first 2 guaranteed a place in the final. And it's a pretty clean start. It's an even start as well. Stark of the USA going nicely in lane number 4. Charlton of the Bahamas, though, in lane number 7 is moving nicely. But it looks like the American in lane number 4. There's a faller off hurdle number 8, but it didn't trouble the winner of our first semi-final. Grace Stark of the USA, 12.38 seconds. Devon Charlton, the flag bearer for the Bahamas, in second place. And they hug and they embrace, and they're the 2 first automatic qualifiers, Alison, for the women's sprint hurdle final.
Yeah, and it looks like Abdul Rashid of Canada that hit the deck. Unfortunately, that third flight from home, she really crashed through the barrier. But yeah, Grace Stark Following on from what we saw last night with the American champion Grant Holloway in the high hurdles, finally taking the gold. She's just cementing her intention to try and do the same. 12:39, a real clean performance. Devon Charlton making the Bahamian really work hard in the final flights to get onto that automatic qualifying spot.
Nicely done there, Adrian, in the first semi-final. And as mentioned, British interest coming up in semi-final number 3 when Cindy Sember lines up in lane number 8.
Just bring in some American interest here. We've got the US track and field journalist Larry Eder, editor of the athletic site Run Blog Run, joins us. Larry, thanks very much for coming on. So, what are the Americans suddenly doing right?
You know, it surprises some of me too, because normally the middle distances are always something that I'm complaining about. And the jumps for women a lot of times. And we saw Jasmine Moore get a triple jump and a long jump medal. And my gosh, in the 800 or in the 1500, for the men, and in the 10,000 for the men, it's been fabulous. And so I think I think they timed the Olympic trials well, which is always an issue. Sometimes I think they get it a little too close, but I think you've got the perfect storm. You've got a lot of enthusiastic young athletes, but also athletes at the end of their careers who want to do really, really well.
I mean, what are you going to write about? Now you can't complain about the middle distance runner. There must be something you can complain about. You're a journalist.
Yeah, that's what my girlfriend teases me about. She goes, what are you going to complain about today? You know, the men's long jump in the U.S., we have such a great history. I'm a little disappointed about that. In the men's decathlon, we have such an incredible history in the U.S. with the decathlon. And I really want to see American decathletes do well again. And I'm watching Anna Hall very closely right now. You're Katarina Johnson-Thompson. She looks fabulous. I mean, she is just totally impressive. And my readers like the whole global view. I try to get them to appreciate we're very lucky with the medals we have in this country and the performances. But there's a lot of countries that don't get a medal, that they're very happy if they get someone in the top 6. I mean, last night with Pakistan, with the javelin, that was mind-boggling, you know? And it was very exciting. And I've interviewed the Indian in second place, Niraj Chopra. Really nice guy. Got to meet him in Doha. And he's got more track fans than many countries. He's got 9 million people on his social media. So there's a lot of exciting things to write about in Paris. I mean, it's been the crowds. I was there in 2003 for the World Champs, and the crowd was pretty good. I recall from my diaries probably about 35 to 40,000 a day. But this reminds me almost of London 2012. And for me, this is the 10th Olympics that I've covered. London was the high point. The crowd was knowledgeable. They were fun. And there was great Indian food. We don't get much Indian food in Wisconsin.
So where was the praise due here? Where does the grassroots happen? Where's the talent brought through? Is it schools, or is it high schools or colleges? It's
high schools. There's 18,000 high schools with 1.5 million 14, 18-year-old boys and girls running cross-country and track, about 500,000 in cross-country, and just a little over 900,000 in track. And then we have an indoor track season with about 120,000 kids. You've got coaches at the high school level who are very, very good. The average one has been there for 15, 16 years. And at the junior high, which is that is for 11-year-olds to 14-year-olds in the U.S., a lot of them have a thing called an Olympic Day. And so they have a shortened track season. So a lot of the kids are given track. But, I was a coach at high school for 11 years, Division I for 3, community college for 6. And if I was talking to parents, I would tell them to have their kids do as many activities as possible before they specialize. And that's the biggest thing I'm concerned about. I don't know what it's like in the UK in schools, but in the U.S., a lot of parents think, oh, my kid's going to get a scholarship. They're going to get an NIL, so they got to play football, you know. And I remember interviewing Michael Johnson about 10 years ago. And I said, Michael, what's the biggest problem with the parents you deal with? And he goes, they want their kids to specialize in football. I said, what should they do? He said, football, baseball, basketball, track, you know. So if I was talking to young parents now, I'd tell them to just get the kids active and have fun. Because what's happened in the U.S. is that the best athletes are coming to track and field again.
Yeah, but I mean, it sounds like at a grassroots level. I mean, it sounds so broad. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. So, Kath, but Alison, we've got nothing like that at school level here, have we? I mean, there's some exceptions. No, but it's extraordinary what they've got in the States.
It really is, and you know, and there's clearly we're moving back to the period where a lot of our British athletes are moving out to the States, whether it be to go through college. And I completely understand that. You know, if I was a 17-year-old on the cusp of something good, with the way that our university system is now in the UK and the cost of the you know, I was in that fantastic era where university, I didn't come away with a student loan and owe thousands and thousands, you know. I was in a very different time. And so now if you've got a young athlete of 16, 17 and they are talent spotted by the colleges in America, which they do an awful lot, come over to the UK, you know, you look at the likes of Louis Hinchliffe. You know, Matt Hudson-Smith's now based in America. Yes, he's not at college there, but Josh Kerr went to college there and stayed in America. Dino Asher-Smith has now moved over to a college coach in Coach Flo, Edric Florial, who's based out of Texas. You know, Amber Anning has just come out of the University of Arkansas. All of our individual medalists now are learning and training in the best setup, in a collegiate setup. I mean, I think that the thing is, and I know that this frustrates Larry, is track and field only becomes aware through the consciousness of the rest of the American people once every 4 years, and I think that's probably correct. Why they're trying to make their mark now. The golds that America are winning here, they've already topped what they did in Tokyo, and we've still got 2 days left.
Kath,
and the TV ratings over here in the US right now are up 83% over great. Tokyo. Yeah. And that's fabulous. You know?
Does that got anything to do with Snoop?
Oh, Snoop, you know, Snoop's been fantastic. I got to get close to him at the Olympic trials, and he really likes athletics, but he knows all sports. And he's been doing it with fun, but there's a dignity there. And I really think it's one of the smartest things that NBC did over here is bringing him in. Because people of all ages are getting a kick out of him, you know? Yeah. He did a thing with Martha Stewart the other day that I was laughing so hard I was crying. And it was just funny, you know? Mm-hmm. And I'm trying to get his little trading pin right now because I've got pins going back to Montreal. Mm-hmm. So I thought it was very cool. Yeah. But you were talking about the college system in the U.S. We have some of the best coaches in the world, and that's true. And I think it'll continue.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've talked the college system where you talked about the more elite end of athletics. Well, what I'm jealous of, Kath, if jealous is the right word, is that schools, what a broad base they've got at high school level in terms of kids competing, whether they're going to go on to be Olympians or not.
Exactly, and it's such a big deal over there. The system and the structure that gives athletes the opportunity then to go on to come and compete at this level. It is. You know, many of us are envious of that, and lots of British athletes get afforded opportunities to go and study in the USA, and a lot of athletes throughout all the teams here of the 184 nations competing, so many of them are based in the US system. But what I wanted to ask Larry was, Larry, I went over to my NBC friends and colleagues last night and said, listen, are you going to leave some medals for anybody else? You know, you got these 27 medals. But you know what the first thing they said to me though, Larry, was, listen, we need these medals, Kath. It's such an important time in the USA at the moment with everything that's going on. We need these medals. Explain to our listeners, what do they really mean by that? Why is it so important that the USA do well here?
Well, we're in a political time right now, wherever you stand, that is frightening. My uni degrees are in history, and it is scaring me what's going on in this country. And the thing about the positiveness of the Olympics. It's bringing the country together. It's been so divisive for the last 8 years. And I'm 65 years old. And I remember my first election in 1976 that I got to vote in. And there were Republicans and Democrats, but it's not like it is now. And so this is really bringing people together, whatever sport they like, because a lot of people are watching. My girlfriend loves gymnastics and swimming. She's okay with track and field, but she really likes those two sports. And I think the Olympics has something for everybody. But yes, the medals are a big deal. I think sometimes it's a bit too much, okay? And what I mean by that is that in the social media especially, when athletes do not win a gold medal, U.S. and Australia in particular, the athletes are really harassed. Ali Kaur, the Aussie 1,500-meter runner, wonderful young man, has been attacked on social media because the guy was just worn out this year. I mean, he had a hard enough time getting back to the elite level to compete. And people don't understand, to get through your national championships at any country is a big deal. Then to get to the Olympics, it's incredible. Yeah. It's incredible. And that's what I try to communicate. I do a daily podcast, Coffee with Larry, and I try to remind people every day. And I give them a little tidbit of a country that they got an athlete in the top 6, or this is their first athlete competing in the 100. And I'm trying to explain to them how important it is for these countries, I really think what the Olympics and the World Championships do, not only for global sport, but for us feeling closer together in the world, is truly important. Yeah. I mean, that's what I loved about Budapest last year. Yeah. Oh my gosh, it was so much fun.
It was.
There were so many families there watching the World Champs, and the crowds here. I've got 4 riders in Paris, and they are all having a great time.
Okay, let's go to the next heat. I must say, Kath, given that every high school's doing this great sport, the college coaches are the best in the world. I think the Americans should be rather disappointed with their medal haul. They should be doing better than they are.
Yeah, but they're teaching us. That's the problem, Adrian. So a lot of these athletes are actually based in America.
That's it, and that's the point I was trying to make. The fact that so many athletes who are winning medals are based in the US. So I think those 27 medals for the USA, if you stretched it out, would probably get nearer 40, 45 with the amount of athletes based in the US system. They're doing it right and they're doing it well, and they're leading the medal table here in track and field. And talking about track, it's the third semi-final of the women's 100-metre hurdles. Cindy Sember, the British athlete, lines up in lane number 8. She's swaying from side to side as all the athletes are introduced to the brilliant crowd here again. The amount of flags, we've just seen them increasing every single day from all of the nations in this beautiful stadium. All the nation flags are around the inside line of the Stade de France here, just hanging with no breeze whatsoever. And I can spot the British flag, and they'll be waving them shortly for Cindy Sember in 8. A reminder, the first 2 get through to the Olympic women's sprint hurdle final. Chin of the Netherlands goes into the Bouquet of Japan in 3. Nugent of Jamaica, they're not having their best Olympic Games so far, with just that 1 gold medal in the field. And there's a huge roar for Samba Mayela of France. She starts in lane number 6, 1 lane outside Camacho Quinn of Puerto Rico, the defending Olympic champion. Russell of the USA goes in 7, Cindy Sember for the British team in 8, and Fiorier of South Africa in 9. So the top 2 get themselves into the Olympic final. 12.55 seconds is the time needed to be bettered if you're not in an automatic qualifying position. Bronze at the Commonwealths in Birmingham a couple of years ago for Cindy Sember, the 30-year-old. Hurdling is in the family. She's the UK indoor champion this year and has a real opportunity here. She tucks her hair behind her back. And the last athlete is introduced. A brilliant morning of action so far. KJT is off, relaxing, crunching the numbers before a very crucial women's 800 metres in the heptathlon later. One British star has a chance of Olympic gold in the Stade de France tonight, and another one does a high knee lift, a little bounce, and settles herself into the blocks, trying to get into the Olympic final. The former world indoor champion, Samba Mayela of France in 6, gets the usual encouraging roar from those inside the Stade de France. No bright sunshine today. It is overcast, but it's still warm as we have our third semi-final. Semba goes in 8. And it's a clean start. Samba Mayela of France out well in lane number 6. Semba's got a bit of work to do here. She's in about 4th place. Camacho Quinn of Puerto Rico, the defending champion, is going to win this one. Cindy Semba falls down at hurdle number 8 and punches the ground. The Briton has started to cry, understandably so, as she falls in the semi-finals of the Olympic Games. Camacho Quinn takes the third semi-final with 12.35 seconds. But walking off, absolutely fuming Alison Kirbishley, Cindy Semba has crashed out at the semi-final stage.
Oh, that's so sad to see. You know, she was making a move and then clattered hurdle 7 and then crashed into barrier 8 and hit the deck. So sad. She can't believe it. Her hands are on her head as she looks up at the screen. In the flash before her, she just didn't even get a chance to think. That hurdle was right on her. We're watching the replay now with her, and this is going to be a painful watch for Cindy Semba. Yeah, she just caught a trail leg coming off hurdle 7, and that just sent her, the momentum. It's all a rhythm event, hurdles. It's about getting your lead leg, snapping that down, and she just caught her trail leg, and it knocked her off balance. Hit through hurdle 8 and she banged her fist onto the track. She knows that's an opportunity missed, but up front, the reigning defending champion Camacho Quinn of Puerto Rico, the season's best for her, 12.35, with Masai Russell second with 12.42, and Nugent going through as a fastest loser. Both fastest losers, non-automatic qualifiers coming from that heat. That could have been Cindy Semba, which is why she was so frustrated.
Yeah, she's going to be obviously disappointed. That's stating the obvious there. But as Alison said, when you look at the times, the fastest non-automatic qualifier, 12.52 seconds there, Adrian. Cindy Semba's lifetime best is 12.50. It's something she would have felt she was capable of doing, but she crashed out in about 5th place at hurdle 8.
I mean, apart from being fed up, that's going to be sore in the morning. I mean, it was a hell of a tumble.
Yeah, and you know what? Falling onto a tartan track is bad at the best of times or worst of times, but when it's on this Mondo style surface, it's almost like a friction burn, very much like you see with cyclists when they hit the tarmac. This sort of smooth surface, you just kind of burn the skin, and you could see her looking at her shoulder because these women are operating at such speeds, this is the jeopardy of hurdles, unfortunately. But yeah, it's so sad to see, an athlete who has been a regular when she's got onto the British team, making global and world and Olympic finals. So yeah, she'll be really, really disappointed.
Let's just go back to the American athletics writer Larry Eder. Larry, Noah Lyles, what's your take? I'd suggest there are 2 issues. One, There's the COVID business. 2, I mean, he's got an awful lot to say for himself. Has he earned the right to be the big I am yet? Olympic gold medalist though he is.
Well, I've known Noah since he was 17. I love him. He's a sweet young man. The mouth sometimes, and I've talked to him about this. Last year he and I had words when he finger pointed at Arian Knighton, and I told him if I was coaching Arian, I'd tell Arian to kick his butt. And so Noah does a little bit of that. He realizes that he has this opportunity not only as a great athlete, but because he's a great athlete, he's also a sports entertainer. The kids totally dig him over here. And, that he has ADHD and that he's overcome asthma and all these things are a big deal. Sometimes I think he gets a little too much. But I think his 100-meter race, when you look at the breadth of his career, is the finest race that he's ever done because it came down to the very, very end. I compare it to watching Bernard Lagat win a 1,500 or a 5,000 medal in the last 50 meters. And talking to Bernard, I would ask Bernard, how do you pull it off? And he goes, Larry, I focus on it because no one else can respond after that. That's what he did in that 100 meters. So I'm convinced if he hadn't been sick, and there's always going to be ifs, and it's going to be all over social media, I think he'd have taken the American record down farther. Can he get Usain Bolt's record for 200 meters at this time? I'm not sure. What I'm concerned about is how bad his COVID is. I've had COVID twice, and after each time, I had to have heart surgery. It's not anything to play with. But an elite athlete, they tend to do better, but sometimes they get long COVID, and that's what I'm concerned about.
But look, it's not just about him. I mean, is he not getting some heat on social media elsewhere and from his teammates for being there yesterday in that final and potentially spreading it around his teammates and opponents?
Yeah, I admit that I haven't seen that much. I was checking in with his coach to see how he was, because I know how bad COVID can be. And then my girlfriend said something to me, and a couple of guys I coached with said, Larry, should he have been out there? And the USATF staff, medical staff, apparently approved it. But I haven't been able to talk with some of his competitors to see what they thought about it. And I don't know if he was at a contagious stage or what, And those things are all concerning. And people forget about COVID. When you're traveling around the world like he does, you got to be really careful. And for the most part, he and his team or his group are very careful. But with so many people, with 11,000 people together, athletes together in a very small place, people get sick. I mean, I remember Brendan Foster in 76 being sick the entire week with the flu before his 10,000. He was the only Brit to win a medal in 76 on the track. And he did it after a week of the flu. And people notoriously got sick in the Olympic Village. And so that's what I suspect it was. But in terms of him making the decision, should he have pulled out of the 200? That's a good question. And it's something that I'll wait to see how people respond to. My belief is these kids have gone so long in trying to prepare that if medical crews are allowing them to do it, if their coaches are okay with it and they're not jeopardizing their health, then I'm okay with it. But it's an important question to ask.
Yeah, I'm just thinking back to his personality, Larry. Is Noah Lyles' personality, though, making a difference to fans and the levels of fans in the USA? Because if you haven't got a ball in your hand in the USA and play baseball or NFL, there's not as much interest, is there? Is Noah's personality making a difference to the sport with the way he behaves?
I believe so. I think he's getting a lot of the kids who like track but also really dig basketball or American football. They like that he has a personality because some of our track athletes have personalities. Kenny Bednarek is a wonderful example. He just does it a different way. He's a kid from a small town in Wisconsin. When you go into his hometown, it says, "Welcome to, this is the home of Kenny Bednarek." So the little town of 5,000 is very proud of him. But, and Fred Curley, and I really love Fred, but Fred gets pretty wound up with Noah a lot of times at the pressers. But then he winds Noah up. So I find it, as a journalist, I get a kick out of it. But sometimes some of it goes too far. I thought that Mr. Ingebrigtsen, needs to calm it down a little bit. The difference between Ingebrigtsen and Noah Lyles is Noah Lyles won 3 200 World Championships and just won the 100 Olympic title. And for the last 3 1500s that Mr. Ingebrigtsen's been in, 2 Brits to beat him and, an American now. So he might need to change his tactics. But Noah, I just want to see him get healthy and like to see him race out there because I think he's brings a lot of excitement to the sport, and his kids really, really identify with him.
Okay. Larry, thanks very much indeed. Larry Eder joining us. You can catch up with him on the athletic site Run Blog Run. And also, I think you said he got a podcast, a Coffee with Larry, was it? It's just gone 11:30. Let's get a news bulletin, shall we?
The voice of the UK.
This is BBC Radio 5 Live.
The BBC News on 5 Live, I'm Bethan Holmes. Police in Belfast say they dealt with a number of race-related hate crimes last night. A car was set on fire and a group of people wearing masks threw bricks at officers. No injuries have been reported. Last night, the Prime Minister told police chiefs to remain on high alert for more unrest in England over the weekend. Victims of historical miscarriages of justice have been told they won't be refunded money that was deducted from their compensation to cover bed and board while they were in prison. Last year, the Conservative government said these deductions wouldn't happen in the future, but ministers now say the change won't apply to people who've already received payouts. Ukraine says it's hit a military airfield deep inside Russia overnight. Ukraine is continuing a cross-border offensive. Kyiv hasn't directly commented on the operation. And a fourth teenager has been arrested in connection with planned attacks on Taylor Swift concerts in Vienna. Austrian officials say the 18-year-old Iraqi citizen was detained last night.
Bring the Premier League to life with BBC Radio 5 Live.
And a brand new season begins.
Oh, that was late. And out comes the red card.
What a goal!
With more live Premier League football than anywhere else.
Long way out.
The Premier League, coming soon.
On 5 Live and BBC Sounds.
Paris 2024, the Olympic Games.
With Adrian Chiles.
On BBC Radio 5 Live.
It's just gone 11:30. Let's get back to the Olympics, to the sports climbing. We're getting to the crunch point in the final of the men's. Maz Faruqi.
Yeah, the climbers are going to get underway shortly in the lead discipline, Adrian. The 15-metre wall, which forces the climbers back on themselves. A really tight incline. They're almost hanging off their fingertips. The head wall where the blue section is where the athletes will be aiming for. That is the highest scoring area at the very top. The incline up there at about 60 degrees. That's where the top climbers will be aiming for and where, in all likelihood, the medals will be won. Remember, Toby Roberts of Great Britain is in bronze position at the moment. Hamish MacArthur, our other Brit in this final, he will go out first shortly. There are no reclines, no second chances. Each climber has a period of 6 minutes for their attempt.
And let's bring in the British climber, Percy Bishton. Percy, I trust you're enjoying all this very much. I mean, how much of a gap can you make up in this final discipline as you go for the as you go for that height? Are there extra points to be gained here?
So this is the final discipline. There are 2 disciplines in the sport climbing. We've had boulder this morning. Yeah. Which is more on the technical difficulty, explosive power. Lead climbing is more of an endurance event, and the climb that the climbers have to do, never seen before. It'll get progressively harder and harder. Climb looking to get
So we'll try and sort Percy's line out there, Maz. I mean, our point is the scoring roughly the same, or are there relatively more points to be gained with this one?
No, I mean, the scores are the same, so this is cumulative scoring, so these will be added to the points that these climbers got in the boulder discipline. Hamish MacArthur, by the way, of Great Britain, is underway in this final now, 10 seconds into this 6-minute allocation.
I mean, that's a good
period
example. He's not in the medal spots, but is it likely, is it possible for him to make the ground up here?
It is, but again, it's also about speed. It is about endurance, as we were just saying, but it's all about if you can get up to the top of the wall, it's who's able to do that as quickly as possible. But then you've got to balance that with the fact that if you do come down and you do make a wrong judgment call, you do assess something perhaps not entirely correctly and you come off, then that is it. And your score is as far as you've managed to get on the wall. This section that Hamish MacArthur is on, at the moment is the kind of nice sort of easy section, easy relatively speaking. Not for me, I wouldn't be able to do this at all, but this is the bit where they're just kind of getting a feel for the wall now before they move then towards the yellow section. And there's little scores that kind of dot along the wall, almost kind of stickers that allow the climbers to know how far up they're going, how many points they've scored. And they also have this little bag of chalk that they have over their shoulder that they have with them as they go up this wall, because obviously the tension is right there. The adrenaline is flowing. They are putting in so much work to stay on this wall that they need to keep putting that chalk on their hands. The sweat will be flowing there, and Hamish MacArthur has managed to navigate his way now. Pretty solid start from him so far into the yellow section of this wall, so the second most difficult bit. He's had 1 minute and 40 seconds that he has used up so far. But if athletes do get to the top, the tiebreaker is how much time it's taken them to get up there. But you've got to balance that, as we say, with this problem solving of trying to make sure you don't fall off the wall. But this is a decent start from Hamish MacArthur. But the other point of this, of course, is that all the other climbers, the 7 other climbers in this final, are going to be looking at which areas he's finding tricky, how he's approaching it, where the potential pinch points are, and what they should try and avoid and make sure they do differently, perhaps, later on when they do their climb.
And Percy, presumably there's a trade-off between, you don't want to go too quickly, and you don't want to rush anything. On the other hand, the longer you're up there, the harder it gets, presumably, on your arms.
Yeah, the climb gets more and more difficult, and holding on by your fingertip, literally just by your fingers and your toes, the more time you get to build up in your arm, which means you can't hold on any longer. So the climbers move quickly, as quick as they can, because fighting against this, what we call the pump, which is what happens when your arms get full of lactic acid, then you fall off. So you have to move quickly to get through that, but you have to go with caution as well, so you don't make any mistakes. The climbs are designed to be incredibly slip off, especially high up.
Oh, he seems to be doing well to my untutored eye.
Hamish has got nothing to lose in this. He qualified in the last OQS event, and he's had an absolutely phenomenal Olympic Games. His boulder round was amazing, and he's very, very good at lead. We could we could see him get into the medals here for sure.
Well, he's very close to the top now, Matt.
Oh yeah, I mean,
360, didn't he? Hung himself upside down there, Percy.
I don't quite know how he did that. Can't see how he did that 360. And
unbelievable
unless
his
wrist's on a peculiar hinge.
Off. And this is the smooth section, as Percy was saying there. The higher up you get, the less grab there is, and that he's dropped there. But he got up towards the bottom section of that blue section, right at the top, where it's really smooth. 68.0 is his lead points total. So adding that to his boulder points total of 53.9, he is 121 point. Sorry, they've just updated that now. He got 72 points off that lead. So his total point score is 125.9. Obviously, the first climber to go in this final. That puts him top of the standings at the moment, but a lead points of 72.0 out of 100 is a very decent effort, you would say, from Hamish MacArthur.
So, Percy, it was interesting you're saying the others have been absolutely focused on every move he's made to see what they can sort of replicate and what they can avoid doing, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely. They haven't seen the climb before, so all the athletes are at the same disadvantage. They're trying to find the best way to tackle it. That was a phenomenal effort by Hamish.
Absolutely extraordinary. So who's going next, Matt?
Sorry, Adrian, I'm just having a look here on my start list. Colin Duffy of the USA, who is out in the medal positions at the moment after the boulder points. He was 68.3 was his total, so that had put him in silver medal position, just ahead of Toby Roberts. So the American Colin Duffy just to come out now and start his lead attempt.
OK, Maz, we'll talk to you shortly. Let's go back to the athletics. Kath, Alison, we were just talking about the other climbers just watching avidly there to see what they could learn. Well, doing a different kind of watching now will be Katerina seeing what the second group of javelin throwers can do.
Well, she'll probably be very aware that Nafi Thiam, on her first throw of 3 here, the 2-time Olympic champion, who's on the runway now going for attempt number 2, went 54 metres and 4 centimetres on her first throw, which is big. The javelin's flying on her second attempt. It's not going to improve on her first effort, Adrian. Just over 54 metres gives her at the moment an 121-point lead over Katarina Johnson-Thompson. And when you look at their comparative 800-metre lifetime best, it's more, the gap's too big at the moment. We don't want Nafi Thiam, if you're a British fan, to throw any further than that, because it would give her a little bit of a cushion, so we say, and make it very hard for KJT to potentially overturn it in the 800 metres. They've got a 6-second difference between their lifetime bests over the 800-metre distance, and with that big throw of 54.04 from Nafi Thiam, it strings that out to potentially at least an 8 or 9 second lead over our British star. So it's all to play for. There's one more throw to come in terms of what Nafi Thiam's done so far, but she's come out and done, Alison, what we expected her to do, and now has that 121-point lead as it stands. As it stands, exactly. She's got that one throw left. Can she try and better that and make that cushion even bigger going into the 800 metres and put the pressure on Katarina Johnson-Thompson having to run the 800 metres of her life? If she can just get on the phone now to Keely Hodgkinson and try and work out how she runs something close. She's going to have to run a lifetime best, without doubt. I'm looking, that quite telling is Anna Hall of America. She's the better 800 metre runner in this whole pool of 23 heptathletes, with a kind of a world, it's an elite time of just outside 2 minutes. She's currently in 5th place. So to her, she's got to run the race of her life to get onto the podium, which could help Kat. It could help Katarina Johnson-Thompson because she'll have a pacemaker. But what will happen is Thiam will have the stats will be done, the numbers will be crunched, and she will know what that buffer will be. And she'll just watch Katarina Johnson-Thompson the whole way round and try and keep within touching distance of her.
So the buffer will be what in terms of time or metres? We don't know, but roughly, maybe 10 metres, 20 metres, half the track. How far ahead of her will our woman have to finish in the 800?
That is roughly what we are trying to work out now, because at the moment, coming into this, there was a 6-second difference in their personal best, and that related to 90 points. Well, Thiam has got 121 points, so it's a bigger gap than their personal bests. Right. But like I say, very few heptathletes manage to do their personal best within, you never come here unless you're very early in your heptathlon career and do 7 personal bests in one heptathlon. But what it also will do is we'll see Thiam have to race. Very rarely have we seen Thiam have to absolutely race for the gold medal. And I'm struggling to think, because obviously when we watched Jessica Ennis-Hill do it in 2012, she'd pretty much won the gold medal come the 800 metres, but she was such a good 800 metre runner, she also went out and won that event. So we knew that the outright winner crossed the line first. Well, in this occasion, we know tonight the outright winner could possibly finish well down the field, but with enough points, because Thiam is such a slow 800 metre runner. I say slow. Obviously, she'd beat me, put it that way. But in the full field of heptathletes, she's not one of the quickest. But that cushion she's given herself is exactly what the Belgian needed to do. 121 points is big. It's massive.
Thank you very much. Let's pop back to the climbing, Maz.
Well, the second athlete to attempt this lead climb has just come off the wall. He reached about the same point, just the start of that really top point scoring section, that blue scoring section, where, as Percy was explaining earlier, it starts to get really smooth, much less to hold on to. Colin Duffy of the USA pretty much reaching about the same level, same height as Hamish MacArthur. He received a lead points total just underneath the Brit, but when you add that to his boulder points total, he has moved above Hamish MacArthur of Great Britain to the top of the leaderboard. So Colin Duffy out in front at the moment, 136.4 points his total, but remember, 6 athletes in this final are still to attempt this lead climb.
Okay, Maz, back with you shortly. We were looking at the javelin in the heptathlon a moment ago. Last night in the men's javelin event, there was a massive moment for Pakistan.
Arshad Nadeem, a 90-metre thrower 2 years ago. A sensational win that was at the Commonwealth Games. Hasn't been in that sort of form since. His best this year, 86 metres and 59 for the big Pakistani athlete. Oh, and that's enormous. This is on its way. He's put that on its holidays. Oh, my word. And that's way beyond the Olympic record.
Extraordinary scenes, I would have thought, all over Pakistan there, as that was their first ever Olympic gold outside of hockey. Farid Khan, a sports journalist and content creator based in Lahore. Have people got their heads round this yet? Farid, have there been big celebrations?
Yeah, there have been crazy celebrations. If you're born in Pakistan, you're not supposed to be an athlete. Unfortunately, we have been limited to a one-sport nation now, and Arshad's, achievement is unparalleled, unprecedented. I think we have got to know now that we have finally achieved it. It felt like a dream till last night, but we woke up and we saw the headlines and we realized it did happen. It's great, actually.
So, how did he come to take up the javelin? Was he no good at cricket? Or would he just like the idea of it?
He actually was a cricketer growing up. He left cricket. He even left football. He was a decent player. He told us that he took up javelin because he thought that was a sport or that was an event where he could make the nation or the country proud. And all of us actually were shocked because the national record which he broke was about 78 meters only. And now he's batted it by about 13 or 14 meters. That's a great achievement for any Pakistani because it was something unheard of. And javelin throw is something which has now been made popular just because of Arshad Nadeem. People in Pakistan never ever, even in their wildest dreams, would have thought an athlete coming from Pakistan would win a gold medal at the Olympics in javelin throw. It's just crazy.
So, do you really think people could take up athletics because of this, or to take up the javelin specifically?
Definitely, javelin specifically, there has been, I think, a craze in Pakistan about javelin ever since he won the Commonwealth Games gold medal, and then he was a silver medalist in the World Athletics Championship. So there's a rivalry between India and Pakistan, and Neeraj Chopra actually has helped him raise the bar to another level. Because, India-Pakistan's rivalry has always been popular in cricket, but now we have this in javelin. And trust me, if we have these contests in the next couple of years, or till the LA Olympics 2028, we are definitely going to get a lot more javelin throwers in Pakistan. That is one thing for sure. And Arshad Nadeem has inspired a generation of javelin throwers in Pakistan. People now are watching Olympics like crazy. For any sport or for any event other than cricket where people were watching after 12 a.m. in the night, it is just crazy. It has never happened before. And Arshad Nadeem has moved so many people here in Pakistan that you cannot explain in words. This is something phenomenal.
Fantastic. Well, I feel like saying congratulations. What a brilliant day for Pakistan. Farid Khan joining us from Lahore. Let's go back to the athletics. What news from the javelin?
Nafi Tiam, Adrian, has finished her throw. She didn't improve on that 54 metres and 4 centimetre throw that she threw in the first effort. So that 939 points means she does finish with a 121-point lead over Katarina Johnson-Thompson with one more event to come. And it is a big lead. And as Alison's already said, KJT is going to have to run an 800 metres of her life and try and beat Nafi Tiam by at least 7 or 8 seconds, which on personal best, Adrian, it's a 6-second difference. So yeah, it's very much in the hands of the Belgium 2-time champion at the moment.
So they all start together in the 800 metres, because you could stagger the starts to reflect the points gap.
Oh, that's always a debate that we have. And when we say that to the multi-venters, they give you daggers.
Do they?
Yeah,
Why?
Apparently they don't want that. No, it's I guess because you're trying to compare 7 events, and the 800 isn't run in that way. You know, we don't have a handicap system at all in the 800 metres, so or the 1500 with the decathlon. So no, for everybody in the stadium, it would be better, because then you know the person
and at
crossing.
Home. Don't forget
and
us
at
at
home. Sorry, that's true. And listeners, everybody that is called over the line is the winner. But yeah, tonight we're relying heavily, obviously, on everyone commentating, and here in the stadium, the announcer just making sure that everyone is aware who is leading going into the heptathlon and what they have to do, and then just watching this kind of cat and mouse race, because it literally is a cat and mouse race, with Katarina Johnson-Thompson having to run away from Tiam. And Tiam, who knows she's not quite as good an 800 metre runner, but the damage has definitely been done with that 9 and a bit metre lead that she took in the javelin.
I just need to ask you about Rose Harvey, our marathon runner. Just have a listen to this, because she's in the marathon this weekend, but says she only got into running seriously when COVID hit 4 years ago. Let's have a quick listen.
I was made redundant right at the start of lockdown. I'd gone from working this job all hours in the office to having 3 months garden leave because of my redundancy during lockdown. And as we know, we couldn't do a lot. So I thought, well, I've got all this time. I would need a really good project to keep me busy. All the pools were closed. And at one point, cycling was limited as well in some areas in London. So I was basically just left with running. But I kept that up, and I found a running coach to help me with my training and structure it a bit. And it just kind of snowballed from there. I absolutely loved it. Just take the plunge with whatever is fun, whatever you love doing, and just see where you can go with it, because you never know where it might take you.
So Rose Harvey, at 31, went from being a corporate lawyer who did a bit of running to an Olympian marathon runner who, once used to be a corporate lawyer. Astonishing, really, Catherine, isn't it?
It is. It's a wonderful story to think, just as you say, Adrian, 2 years ago she was a full-time lawyer in the city, and now's coming here going, hang on, I'm in the Olympic Village. It's something that I don't think she's ever dreamed of, and can't believe it's happened to her. And we love these stories, though, don't we? These stories of how people get into sport and get into various activities. And no, it's going to be wonderful for her. It really is one of those stories, a nice feel-good story as well. And I think if you spoke to Rose, as you've just done there previously, and even now, she's living the dream, she said, and I can understand why.
Yeah, and it's not the first time that we've seen it, particularly in the marathon. I don't know if you remember back in 2004 in Athens, when all the eyes were on Paula Radcliffe. There was an unknown, or relatively unknown, Tracy Morris, who was a dental surgeon, a dentist, and she came through and qualified for Athens in the marathon. I think previous years she'd started the London Marathon in the masses and was about a 3.5 hour runner, and then came through and qualified for her first Olympics at the age of 32, I think she was, Tracy, then. And I think it's possible, because the marathon is just all about committing yourself to an event more than ever. And the problem is that the hours of training that these guys have to do, and Rose having the time through COVID to find an event and find her love of running, and then just be able to build on that. She ran 2 hours 23 to qualify, or certainly got the qualifying time last year in October in America, in Chicago, and then had to just sit and wait and hope that the British team selected her, and got the nod in late April this year. So has spent her summer preparing for the biggest race of her life.
How good is she? I think her personal best is what, 2:23?
2:23, yeah. I mean, to be honest, remove personal bests from your mind when you come to a marathon championship, and even more so this championship, because the course is, although stunning, it's absolutely brutal. Usually what you find at a championship, they pick a 10k loop and the marathon runners run it 4 times. It makes for much easier management. It makes for a great spectacle. Spectators love it because they see the marathon runners more than once. But this time, they've really gone for it, and they are taking the runners from the city, from the centre of the city, right out to Versailles, which means it's a very, very hilly course. Now, that can kind of help the European athletes, and you kind of, yes, all right, the cream will rise to the top, but I mean, we are going to see a fantastic spectacle in that. We're going to see Kenny Bekele, one of the greatest distance runners ever from Ethiopia, up against the absolute marathon goat in Eliud Kipchoge in the men's race, you know, that in itself is going to be fun to watch. But yeah, Rose, you know, Callie Thackeray is probably our best hope, but I think thinking about medals, it'll all just be about getting the best out of yourself on the day, because it is going to be a brutal marathon race.
Okay, earlier we had Kath and Alison bringing us the 800 metres semi-finals. Max Bergins ran a personal best to give himself a spot in Saturday's final. Afterwards, he spoke to Sarah Mulkerins.
Congratulations, Max. You've not raced much this season, but you've just raced yourself into an Olympic final.
I know, I couldn't be happier. I mean, I don't really know what to say. It's sort of come out of nowhere. I mean, fastest time this year has been 1:45. I mean, I knew I could run faster, but I mean, to get there in a PB, and I felt quite good doing it as well. So yeah.
Would you have believed it earlier this year when you were going through all those injuries?
I wouldn't have believed it a month ago. I wouldn't have believed it like a few weeks ago, to be honest. I really don't want to say. Sorry.
No, that's quite all right. Absolutely. Talk us through the race then, and when you felt you knew you had qualified.
Well, I mean, the race plan was go out and follow the front runner, who was very likely to be Wanyoni, who was in the lane right next to me. So it worked out quite well from that point of view. Followed him across the 200. Felt quite comfortable following him through the 4. Bryce came up on my side, boxed me in a bit, but it wasn't like everyone was coming through, so I didn't panic, didn't worry about it. Held on till 6, thought about making a move, but again, no one was coming past. Us 3, we seemed far up, and also knowing that the first 2 heats were slow, like if it were on for a fast time, it would have been top 5 in my heat, so I just had to hold my position, and I felt good.
Well, congratulations, you're in that final.
Thank you.
Max Bergin, astonished as well as delighted. So, Kath and Alison, a great morning's work. You're in the gold medal position, so you've earned the right to come back and do more of the same this evening. What will you have for us?
Oh, we've got lots, Adrian. 7 finals tonight as we head towards the end of these Olympic Games. Both sprint relay finals have British interest. The women's 400-metre final has British interest with Amber Anning. Women's 10,000, the fastest men in the world ever come back for the men's 400-metre hurdles final. And of course, at 7:25 UK time tonight, Katarina Johnson-Thompson is aiming to win her first Olympic medal. Can it be gold?
We shall see. She's got some work to do, but that girl's capable of anything. Kath and Alison will now have an afternoon of leisure before coming back and bringing it all to us again this evening. It's just coming up to midday. Let's get a news bulletin.
The voice of the UK.
This is BBC Radio 5 Live.
The BBC News on 5 Live. I'm Bethan Holmes. Let's start with some breaking news. The BBC has written to Hugh Edwards asking him to return more than £200,000 £200,000 that he was paid after being arrested for making indecent images of children. In a letter to staff, the BBC chair, Samir Shan, said Edwards had behaved in bad faith, saying the corporation believed that he had taken his salary despite knowing he was to plead guilty to the offences. The BBC has also announced there'll be an independent review into workplace culture, as it also believes the events have put a spotlight on issues of power imbalances in the workplace. In other news, riots in Northern Ireland have continued for a fifth night. Police say they dealt with several race-related hate crimes across Belfast. Rioters smashed windows, set fire to cars and threw bricks at officers. Sir Keir Starmer has been speaking in the last hour, and he says police remain on high alert across the UK. Further disorder is expected in England this weekend. And with the start of the football season, Sir Keir says that adds challenges to security plans.
I think there are a lot of things in the mix this weekend, but of course, whatever the challenge, we have to rise to it. And that's why I've had COBRA meetings. That's why I've been talking to the police today about their plans for the weekend. Yes, football is added into the mix. There are other things in the mix, but our focus has to be absolutely solely on the safety and security of our communities. And that's exactly where it is.
Victims of historical miscarriages of justice have been told by the government they won't be refunded for deductions in their compensation to account for savings made for not having to pay rent while behind bars. Last year, the Conservatives scrapped the deductions from all future payouts, but the change doesn't apply to victims who'd already received their compensation. And a fourth person has been arrested in connection with the planned terrorist attacks on the Taylor Swift concerts in Vienna. Austrian officials say the 18-year-old man was an acquaintance of the main suspect. A 15-year-old boy is also being questioned over the planned attack.
Escape with a good book on BBC Sounds, like Yellowface by Rebecca F. Kwong.
I play up our connection. My grief over her death becomes a cornerstone of my origin story.
Enlightenment by Sarah Perry.
Thomas examined the image of a stone woman stuck on the verges of the lake. I suppose she's in the water now. What is she holding?
And Giovanni's Room by James Baldwin.
Do you have a mistress? I asked him. I don't seem to be very interested in women right now.
Listen on BBC Sounds.
The Olympic Games, Paris 2024.
With Adrian Chiles.
On BBC Radio 5 Live.
And a very good Friday afternoon to you. Day 14 of the Olympic Games. Still in the mix for a gold in the heptathlon. KJT, and a personal best has put GB's Max Berging through to the 800 metres final.
I couldn't be happier. I mean, I don't really know what to say. It's sort of come out of nowhere. I mean, to get there in a PB, and I felt quite good doing it as well.
And how are British hopes doing in the sports climbing? Maz Farouk?
Well, Hamish Marshall of Great Britain is in bronze medal position at the moment, with 4 of the 8 climbers having attempted this lead discipline, this 15-metre wall in this climbing final. Toby Roberts is still to go.
Later we'll be in the velodrome, where Team GB will hoping to give us more moments like these in Tokyo.
Laura Kenny almost with a smile on her face in the back straight. She leaves the rest of the field for dust, punches the air in delight and wins the gold for Great Britain.
We'll bring you every Team GB medal live here on 5 Live. You can also follow events on the BBC Sport website and app, or watch on BBC One and iPlayer.
Paris 2024, the Olympic Games.
With Adrian Chiles.
On BBC Radio 5 Live.
To the sport climbing then, Maz Farouki.
Well, Alberto Ginés Lopez of Spain is the 5th climber attempting this lead wall at the moment. Moved himself up to 4th place in the live standings that I got in front of me. Coming up to this blue section, this top scoring section of this wall, where it's very little grip for these climbers. They're very, very smooth to make it very, very difficult to try and reach the top. Maximum score of 100 on offer in this lead section. But Hamish MacArthur with a solid performance of 72.0, putting himself at the moment in bronze medal position when you combine his lead points with his boulder points from the discipline earlier. Toby Roberts of Great Britain is the penultimate climber who will attempt this wall. He was in bronze position after the boulder discipline. So Great Britain still in with a good chance, perhaps, of a medal in this climbing today.
Thank you, Maz. To the golf, Ian Carter.
Huge galleries following the French hope Céline Boutier, who was dented yesterday by the 76 following an opening 65. 3 straight pars to start her round, so the Frenchwoman remains at 3 under par in a share of 6th place. An awful start for the defending champion Nelly Korda. Found water at the first, has dropped another shot, 4 holes in. She's 2 over for her round and at level par, but a fantastic start for the unheralded leader, the Swiss Morgan Metreau, calmly making birdie at the first. There haven't been too many of those today, and she's stretched her lead to 2 shots at 9 under par.
And can I ask you something, in terms of the atmosphere on this course? I mean, if you'd woken up after a long sleep and found yourself at this particular golf tournament, would you spot it wasn't your normal golf tournament, it was the Olympic golf tournament, even though the format's obviously exactly the same?
Yes, I think you would, Adrian. I think that's a really good way of putting it as well, because you've got some golf diehards in the galleries, but there is so much more of a kind of national fervour to it all, flags being flown, sports fans who are just simply trying to get some Olympic competition under their belt. They've found the golf tournament, they've found tickets to it. What's this sport all about? You know, we've got a big hope here, potentially, you know, New Zealand travellers coming over and thinking, right, Lydia Ko, she's going to stand a good chance, and they're following her. They're enjoying what they're seeing at the moment. She's in 3rd place. You know, it's a different kind of vibe to a golf tournament, an ordinary golf tournament, where I think you see most spectators all wearing golf gear because they're golfers. It feels different at the Olympics. It did throughout the men's championship, and it continues to do so with the women's event.
What about partisanship? Is there a sort of a little Ryder Cup sort of flavour to it at times?
Yes, to a degree, but not as full on as a Ryder Cup, where you would see European crowds cheering when a ball goes into the lake off an American club. It's not like that. The crowds are very much behind the players, as is often the case at golf tournaments, but of course it is exaggerated, especially for Céline Boutier playing for France, because she's attracting the home crowds. But you're getting that sort of partisanship from the different sort of forms of fans that are following the individual players. Morgan Metreau there just tapping in for a par at the second, so she remains at 9 under.
Just tell us a little bit about Morgan Metreau. How high up in the celebrity firmament is she in terms of her golf?
Not particularly. She plays on the Ladies European Tour. She's had 2 wins on there. She's won on the feeder tour into the LPGA Tour, but she's ranked 137 in the world. She is not, by any stretch of the imagination, a big gun as far as the women's game is concerned, but she's having the week of her golfing life. And I mean, yesterday she set an Olympic record by going out in just 28 shots. If you think about the scorecard, Adrian, she had on that front 9 8 threes and 1 4. Now that's like kind of filling in your scorecard if you're playing crazy golf quite well, isn't it? You know, it's just ridiculous scoring. She couldn't sustain it, came home in 38, but even so, that 66 propelled her to the top of the leaderboard, and it's a very confident start that we're witnessing at the moment. Important moment here for Lydia Ko, actually. She's got a 5-footer to save par, putting through her shadow. This is on the 3rd green. This is the par 5, where rather the 2nd green, and she is over it now, sends it forward and into the hole. So Lydia Ko very assured with that par putt. She remains at 5 under. I think she's one of the real big dangers here, as is Ronnie Yin, as they call her, the Chinese player, Ruoning Yin, who won the PGA Championship last year.
Thanks, Ian. Just coming up to 12:10. Let's get more on that breaking news concerning the Hugh Edwards situation. The BBC's announced that it's asking the former news presenter to return more than £200,000 he was paid after being arrested on charges of making indecent images of children. He pleaded guilty to the offence in court last week. Our entertainment correspondent Lisa Mazimba is just outside the BBC's headquarters in central London. What can you tell us, Lisa?
Well, the BBC board has released a lengthy statement, which I'll summarise for you. As you say, the most important thing to a lot of people will be that they've written to Hugh Edwards asking him to pay back a significant amount of money that he was paid. They say today the board has authorised the executive, that's people like Tim Davie, the Director General, to seek the return of salary paid to Mr Edwards from the time he was arrested in November last year. Mr Edwards pleaded guilty to an appalling crime. Had he been upfront when asked by the BBC about his arrest, we would never have continued to pay him public money. He has clearly undermined trust in the BBC and brought us into disrepute, and the amount that the BBC will be asking him to pay back will be in excess of £200,000. Of course, Hugh Edwards was the BBC's most highly paid news presenter, one of its best known faces, and also in a separate letter to all BBC staff, the chair of the BBC board, Samir Shah, said that it was a shock to discover that Hugh Edwards was living a double life. On the face of it, he was a much admired broadcaster with whom the BBC had entrusted the responsibility of anchoring its flagship news programme and presiding over national events, but he betrayed the trust of staff and our audiences in the most egregious possible way. Let me be clear, he says, the villain of this piece is Hugh Edwards. The victims are those children for whose degradation Hugh Edwards provided a market for. Now, as well as writing to Hugh Edwards asking him to pay back that money, the BBC has also announced there will be an independent review into workplace practice at the BBC, because they say that this whole affair has thrown up issues like power imbalances within the BBC workplace. So they are going to be asking somebody independently to look at that, and more details will be announced on that in September. And they sort of reiterate the events of the last week or so. They say the BBC board has met a number of times over the last week to review information provided by the executive relating to Hugh Edwards. They say the board's focus has been principally around two issues. Firstly, what was known in the lead up to Mr Edwards being charged and pleading guilty last Wednesday to making indecent images of children, and secondly, the specifics of the BBC's handling of the complaints and the BBC's own investigations into Mr Edwards prior to his resignation in 22nd of April 2024. Now, they say that they believe that Tim Davie and the executive, the small number of people who were aware that Hugh Edwards had been arrested last November, they say that with the information that they had, they believe that Tim Davie and those executives acted in good faith, and that in all the other ways Mr Edwards behaved in bad faith, which is why they're asking him to return more than £200,000.
Lizzo Mazimba, our entertainment correspondent, joining us there. It's just coming up to 12:15. Usually on a Friday we get to talk about the kind of political and cultural events of the week. We've been busy with the Olympics though today, which is as it should be, but we've got a slight lull now. And while we'll keep you in touch with the final of the men's sport climbing, we've got a few moments to reflect on what's been happening, and I suppose it's fair to say we generally be consumed by the rioting that erupted across the country after misinformation was spread online about the attacker who stabbed 3 girls to death in Southport. We've got Politico Sacha O'Sullivan with us, and also Lucy Fisher, Whitehall editor at the Financial Times. Great to have you both on. Lucy, let me start with you. What's been your? I mean, let's take horror as read in terms of the writing that's ensued. What's been your take on it?
Well, I've been very interested in how Keir Starmer has handled this crisis. I think if there were to be any crisis that, dominated his early days in office, in some senses, rioting and violent disorder couldn't really be more in his wheelhouse as a former director of public prosecutions who presided over the 2011 London riots. And therefore, while there's been a bit of criticism that he was slow to call the first Cobra crisis response meeting on Monday, and of course we've since had 2 more of those meetings, it does feel to me that on the law and order side of it, that sort of iron fist, he has known what levers are available to pull, and he's pulled them quite quickly. So we've seen scores more prosecutors stood up, remand courts made available over the weekend, then the quick expediting of people going through the criminal justice system, facing sentencing and then charges, then trial, then sentencing. And I was very struck yesterday at that move to televise the sentences of two of the rioters, which I think that name and shame tactic will probably be helpful.
Okay, we're back with you both in a minute. Just need to pop back to Paris. Maz Faruqi.
Well, Great Britain could be in a great position here to win their first ever Olympic medal at the sports climbing. Toby Roberts, 19-year-old from Great Britain, is on his lead climb discipline here. Remember, he came into this discipline after the boulder discipline earlier in bronze medal position. That is where Hamish MacArthur, the other Brit in this final, sits at the moment on 125.9 points when you combine the lead discipline and the boulder points total as well from earlier together. He is in bronze position at the moment. Toby Roberts had about a minute of his allocated 6 minutes that he's allowed to use to try and make his way up this lead wall. It's 15 metres high. It's at a 60-degree angle at points, and he's just made his way slowly through the lowest scoring section, which is the black and white section. Now he's moved on to the yellow, just hanging off this wall with his hands at the moment. So little for these climbers to grip onto, but the object is to try and then move his way through this yellow section up towards the high-scoring blue section at the top of the wall. That is where you think these medals are going to be decided, as he just takes a pause and then reaches forward and up with his left hand and is just on tiptoe at the edge of one of these yellow blocks on this climbing wall. Now, he's got, as all these climbers do in this discipline, this little bag of chalk that's just round his waist, and he just pauses there and wipes some on his hands, because the grip is so important in this lead climb. There are no reclimbs, remember. You fall and that is that, and it's about how many points you can score out of 100 to try and get to the very top of the wall. Of the 6 climbers that have attempted this lead so far in this climbing final, none have been able to get to the top yet. And Toby Roberts won a World Cup gold in this discipline last year, so he certainly is looking comfortable and in control at the moment. This discipline all about problem solving, but obviously you have the 6 minutes allocated, but you're fighting against that lactic acid, that build up. Your arms in particular will be screaming here, and he's now got to the 30-point marks section scored, so he's got 39.0 points on the board in this lead section at the moment. That puts him on 102 points overall, so down in 6th place. Hamish MacArthur of Great Britain, who's completed this discipline early, was the first climber out onto this section about half hour ago, still in bronze medal position. Colin Duffy of the USA in second, Jakob Schobert of Austria in gold medal position at the moment, and Toby Roberts, the penultimate climber attempting this wall, knows what he has to do to try and get into the medal position. Still to come then, last up in this lead will be Serato and Raku of Japan, the 17-year-old who has been absolutely brilliant so far. So realistically, if Great Britain are going to claim their first ever Olympic climbing medal, then you think that Toby Roberts is going to have to try and put himself into silver medal position, because you imagine that Serato and Raku is certainly going to be challenging for silver or gold. This good work, though, from Toby Roberts. 2 minutes and 7 seconds left of his attempt to climb here, and he's making his way into this high-scoring section now. This is the blue section, the really tough bit at the top of this lead climb, where the grip now for these climbers is so smooth. There's barely anything. It's like trying to grab a button, if you like, when you're going up to these really high sections of the wall. The camera's just trained on Colin Duffy of the USA, who's watching Toby Roberts as he navigates his way up to the upper stages of this climb. Now he just has to take a check there and then just double sort of adjust his grip with his right leg, as he still is making his way nicely up this wall now, up towards that 100-point sticker that he can see right at the top of this 15-metre wall, Toby Roberts. And this progress is really making him score some high points. He's moved into the gold medal position at the moment. Toby Roberts of Great Britain, 88 points on the board. And then he drops there. But what a performance that was on the lead discipline from 19-year-old Toby Roberts, who with one climber to go in this climbing final is in the gold medal position. So Great Britain guaranteed their first ever Olympic sports climbing medal. Is it going to be silver or could it perhaps be gold? We've got Serato and Raku, the 17-year-old from Japan, still to attempt this lead climb.
I'll come back to you shortly. Sorry to have interrupted you, Lucy Fisher and Sasha O'Sullivan. Sasha, Lucy was making the point about, this is in the Prime Minister's wheelhouse as a former CPS and so on. How do you feel he's navigated in some of the accusations from the right about two-tier policing? And, you know, there've been contrasts with how he responded, you know, personally to the Black Lives Matter movement or unrest, depending on who you ask.
So I think Lucy is right, and he's really pulling from his kind of experience of the 2011 riots. Obviously, now being Prime Minister, he's in a very different situation where he's having to navigate the political rhetoric surrounding that. And we've got kind of Nigel Farage coming out and calling him two-tier Keir. And I think the way that this phrase two-tier policing has kind of been accepted and repeated is actually really interesting, because one of those things is how information has spread on social media. And that was the cause of the riots, or how many of the riots kind of were encouraged over the last few days. And this morning, we've had this kind of question mark, and Keir Starmer was saying, well, social media is not a kind of, is not a crime-free zone. Well, you can't just say what you want. And there's been this kind of question mark over the Online Safety Act. And actually, one of the people being sentenced this afternoon is he's being sentenced for things that he wrote on Facebook. And if the Online Safety Act, I mean, it's a mammoth piece of legislation, and it took literally years to even get it onto the books in the first place. And if it can't deal with an outbreak of violence, which started with information online, then I think this is something that will have to be looked at.
What does it say to you, Lucy, about the state of the country? What have we learnt? And I mean, if I can just start you off, I'm torn between thinking it shows, you know, there is a lot of plain racism. Then I've thought, well, there might be a lot of justified concern, maybe, they would say, about immigration. Or maybe it's neither of the above. It's just a load of blokes, mainly, just want a bit of excitement. This is an excuse to go and do some recreational rioting. Where do you stand?
Well, I think, it is complex, and there are manifold kind of factors interlocking here, and it will need a little bit more time and perhaps distance for us to see the wood for the trees. I think, Adrian, there's definitely something in all the factors you list. There is a far-right element in this country that has been whipping up hatred based on race and religion. And I'm not surprised to see questions asked about the coarsening of rhetoric around Muslims in this country and around immigration, and what part that might have played in the recent unrest. Again, there's more scrutiny in the past 24 hours or so about the overlap between rioters of the past week and convicted football hooligans. There are just some people spoiling to head out on the streets for a fight who aren't really motivated by any political reasons. Also,
but need some kind of excuse. I mean, you can't go out and start a riot over nothing unless you're a very peculiar person.
Of course, I think that's right. And then I would also point to, data we have published in the Financial Times today, showing that 7 of the 10 most deprived areas in England have seen violent unrest in the past week, which I think talks to the fact that there are socio-economic factors behind this. And also our data analysis shows that many of the places that have seen unrest have higher than average numbers of asylum seekers being housed there. Now, that in part is linked to social deprivation. In many instances, the government has sought to place asylum seekers in areas that are far cheaper to accommodate them. But clearly, that is linked to some of the unrest we've seen this week too.
Sasha, what would you add to that? What conclusions have you drawn?
I think it's interesting that we saw this morning, as Lucy pointed out, the kind of crossover between football hooligans and the far right. It's funny because I've had this conversation with friends of mine who have covered quite a few protests, and they've said, and this is not necessarily true of these ones, but often you do see similar faces at different protests for different political causes, because they're not necessarily, like, they need that excuse that you were talking about, but they do just kind of want to stir up trouble.
And it seems to me to have been quite skillfully handled in the sense that get two messages across, which is what there was the night, was it Wednesday night, where it was, you know, they were doing a dangerous thing. So we're trailing ahead to, there's going to be disturbances everywhere, but we've got police out there, and we've just had the first sentencings happening. So the message was getting out there. There's plenty of police, and there's plenty of sentencing being done. So you're going to get caught, and you're going to go down, and that, as much as anything else, probably stopped it going too far.
Absolutely. And I think this is what we were kind of talking about at the beginning about this experience of the 2011 riots. What a lot of the barristers who worked on those cases at the time is that the people who were involved, the recognition that they had to live with this criminal sentence against their name for a moment of kind of, you know, idiotic violence, to be honest, was quite stark.
Thanks for that. We just got to go back to Paris. I'm toggling between two radically different things here, and it's getting very close to a medal for GB.
It is. We are guaranteed Britain's first ever Olympic sports climbing medal in this men's climbing final, Adrian. But is it going to be gold, or is it going to be silver for Toby Roberts? He is top of the leaderboard at the moment, but Sarato and Raku of Japan, the 17-year-old, is looking very, very calm, cool and collected here as he's reached the top of the wall, but he's fallen there, and I think it's going to be too much, too little, too late for Sarato and Raku. I think that is going to be a gold medal for Toby Roberts. Great Britain have their first ever sports climbing Olympic medal, and Toby Roberts has his head in his hands. He can't believe it. He was expecting, I think, what we all thought, that Sarato and Raku, who'd looked so comfortable in this final, was going to take the gold medal. But it's Toby Roberts of Great Britain with climbing gold, an Olympic gold, an Olympic medal, Great Britain's first ever climbing Olympic medal. And it's for 19-year-old Toby Roberts. He watched the Olympic climbing make its debut in Tokyo 3 years ago. He said he got hooked then, and 3 years on, not only has he competed and represented Great Britain, he's won a medal, he's won a gold. Toby Roberts of Great Britain, the gold medalist in the men's climbing final.
I'm feeling very bad about myself for hoping that Japanese lad fell off, and then he did.
I mean, 17 years old as well, Adrian, and he looked so cool, calm and collected. Sarato and Raku was in first place after the boulder discipline earlier this morning. Toby Roberts, I think, doesn't know what to do. He's standing, just surveying sort of the GB flags that are flying now in the crowd in front of him here. But he was just very, very just considered, cool, calm and collected. Just overall, it was a very, very assured performance from him today, as he's congratulated by Sarato and Raku, who takes the silver medal for Japan. Austria's Jakob Schober with the bronze, and now the emotions are starting to flow for Great Britain's Toby Roberts. At 19 years old, he has written his name into the history books for Great Britain. Gold for Great Britain, their first Olympic gold in sports climbing, their first Olympic medal in sports climbing. What a performance from Toby Roberts today.
Thank you, Maz. Just back to the state of the nation here, if you like. Lucy Fisher from the FT. I mean, it'll be interesting to see what happens this weekend. I just wonder if, you know, the threat of being caught and the possibility of a jail sentence, you know, you've got to be a pretty enthusiastic rioter or ideologue, whichever it is, to go out and take that risk, haven't you?
I think you're right, and I think that's the reason and precisely why the government has sought to see that the wheels of justice turn quickly in recent days. Beyond that, I'm also interested that on Wednesday we finally saw Telegram, the key app used by some far-right activists to organise the logistics of their demonstrations, finally start to close down groups of these, hardline far-right individuals. And so I wonder if that is degrading their ability to plan these protests. But I think in the longer term, there are questions about, the role that social media has played in this unrest. And, we've heard from the Home Secretary, she wants to look at the legal framework to see whether the Online Safety Act needs to be broadened in scope or, toughened in terms of its penalties on large social media companies. Beyond that, ministers have pointed out that in recent days, where there have been posts that have met a criminal threshold, often these tech firms have been far too slow to take them down. They've spread far and wide before they're removed. And that social media companies that often say in their terms and conditions that they ban, hate speech and the incitement of violence, they haven't been enforcing their own rules. So I think ministers are clear they want to look at that too.
Let's just talk about America before we lose you. The conversation about far left and far right is also being had this week. Kamala Harris named the governor of Minnesota, Tim Walz, as her running mate for November's presidential election. I mean, it is absolutely extraordinary, isn't it, Sasha, that a matter of 2 months ago, the Republicans, Trump's main attack line was, vote for Joe Biden, you'll get Kamala. Now, it's, Kamala is in the box seat and she, so exactly what Trump was warning people might happen has already happened, and yet it's working against him to some extent.
And I think it's been really interesting just in the last 24 hours. You've kind of seen the Republicans throw everything at the wall of Tim Walz just to kind of see what will stick. Trump's been coming out and saying he's in a very Trump way. He said, Tim Walz is big into the transgender issue without, really expanding on that. We've heard questions about, whether or not his time in the army, and whether he kind of didn't go to Iraq at the right time. And I think that was more that he retired at a certain point, he left the army, but trying to use those lines that feel like it kind of hits that culture war threshold, I would say, of whether he is actually a patriot.
Yeah. It's a funny business, politics, Lucy, as we often say, but it's never seemed odder at the moment when Tim Walz has ended up a running mate because he used one word to describe the Republican ticket, and it's one word we've all used, we've all known is arguably a pretty accurate adjective for. He just said, well, they're weird. I mean, even some of Trump's supporters would say, he's a bit weird, but, we still like him, you might say. But he used that word, and then, I don't know, it's just hit home.
It's really interesting, isn't it? It's far less harsh in its assessment than, Hillary Clinton sort of talking about Trump and his basket of deplorables, or all the other sort of comparisons to sort of Nazi sympathizers that critics of Trump have used against him in the past. But it really seems to have got under his skin and rattled him. And in that sort of rather rambling, incoherent speech I thought he gave last night, just very interesting to see him on the back foot. In many ways, he realizes that Joe Biden going is, a loss for him. And
he's the old guy now.
He's the old guy now, absolutely. And he's had to really step up his rhetoric and attack, accusing the Biden-Harris administration of bringing the world to the brink of World War III, threatening the US economy with another Great Depression. It's all very hyperbolic, and it doesn't seem to be sort of, the American electorate don't seem to be buying it in the same way that word weird just chimes with what many of them think of Trump.
Well, here is the former President Donald Trump speaking last night, rambling. Lucy described it. Others did too. Let's have a quick listen.
Kamala's record is horrible. She's a radical left person at a level that nobody's seen. She picked a radical left man that is, he's got things done that he has positions that are just it's not even possible to believe that they exist. He's going for things that nobody's ever even heard of. Heavy into the transgender world, heavy into lots of different worlds having to do with safety. He doesn't want to have borders. He doesn't want to have walls. He doesn't want to have any form of safety for our country.
He's heavy into all sorts of different worlds. I think it was. I mean, at some time, Sasha, though, undeniably he's been electorally successful in the past. It reminds me of, those people who are very confident public speakers and stand up there rambling and obviously think they're really good, even though the rest of us are thinking, what are you on about?
Well, I think the interesting thing about Donald Trump is he's often been quite rambly. He's often been, kind of gotten away with these very odd sentence structures, to be honest. Yeah. And I think in some respects that sometimes chimes with people because it makes him seem like, oh, he's one of us, like we don't necessarily talk in this eloquent fashion like all the politicians or a New York Times journalist or whatever. But I think the weird thing that we're kind of talking about earlier is interesting because it's not almost a political point in the way that some of the other, criticisms of Donald Trump have been. And it does make people think, kind of sit back and think, God, do we want this weird dude?
Okay, and on that thought, we'll leave it. Thank you both very much. Really appreciate your time. Sorry,
thanks, Adrian.
For dipping in and out of you to go to the Olympics there, but we did have to celebrate that gold in the sport climbing. Politico's Sasha O'Sullivan and Lucy Fisher from the Financial Times. Just gone 12:30. Let's get a news bulletin.
The voice of the UK.
This is BBC Radio 5 Live.
The BBC News on 5 Live, I'm Bethan Holmes. The BBC has asked Hugh Edwards to hand back the salary he earned after being arrested for making indecent images of children. In a letter to staff, the BBC chair says the former broadcaster had behaved in bad faith, saying the corporation believed he'd taken his salary of more than £200,000, despite knowing he was to plead guilty to the offences. In other news, police in Belfast say they dealt with a number of race-related hate crimes last night. A car was set on fire and a group of people wearing masks threw bricks at officers, although there's been no reports of any injuries. And Sir Keir Starmer has reiterated his message to police to stay on high alert as further unrest is expected in England. He's also said with the football season starting this weekend, it challenges security plans.
Paris 2024, the Olympic Games.
With Adrian Chiles.
On BBC Radio 5 Live.
We'll be going to the medal ceremony shortly in the sport climbing, where we've just won gold in a brilliant performance there. First, we just thought might look ahead to next week when it's all over. What will we do with our empty lives? And I often worry about sort of the athletes. Suddenly, they were already famous. Maybe they've suddenly become famous, and then the post-Olympic blues happen. What happens when you come home and you go back to your life with you back into training, back to relative anonymity all of a sudden? Anna Watkins won bronze in the double sculls in Beijing, gold in the same event in London. Now Chief Executive of the British Elite Athletes Association, so the perfect person to speak to. Anna, can you remember what it felt like for it suddenly to all be over?
Hello. Thanks for having me. I really do remember after 2012 it was for me. The rowing had all happened in the first week, just like this time, and we had this second week of the Olympics of just partying and insane opportunities and invitations and requests. Would you like to come and spend some money in a shop in London and we'll pay for it all and so that we can take your photo, and would you like this free stuff, and would you like to come and watch the hockey with the Duchess of Cambridge, as it was then. And I remember after the closing ceremony, we'd obviously had a big celebration, and then the next morning it was up early and can you come on Women's Hour? And then I went home back to my house in Wokingham after that, and the house was full of unpacked kit bags, and my husband had gone off to work, having taken as much time off as he could already. And the whole country just felt like it was hungover. And I remember just sitting there amongst all my Olympic kit and having a bit of a cry, just thinking, it all seems so empty. It all seems so empty now. I got this gold medal, and what now? I really clearly remember that moment.
Well, I just wonder if with sports psychology, whether it's all about preparation, as it had to be, getting you the right place to compete. But you'd hope there is some focus on the decompression. I mean, you warm up your muscles and you stretch and warm down if you know what's good for you. Well, surely a similar thing must apply or should apply psychologically.
Yeah, it does. And as we learn more about this process, we've been through it lots of times. There's lots more now than there was even in 2012. There's a decompression programme provided by the UK Sports Institute actually this summer for athletes and their staff who also go through a roller coaster in a similar way. And there's very specific career transition support. But what we know, athletes aren't thinking about that while they're competing. They never quite feel ready, because how could you ever feel ready? It's very normal for athletes not to feel ready. And so I think more than ever, there's an understanding of bring the athletes back close to the support networks that can help them, the official ones, but also the unofficial ones as well. I liken being a retired athlete to being a sort of expat. You've grown up in one culture and way of life, and you've got to move to a different one where the rules don't work the same as how they used to for you. So athletes also really need people who've been through that before, which is other retired athletes. And so we're keen at the Athlete Association to make that community of retired athletes available and connected, so that people have got some friends to navigate this brave new world of normality with.
I don't like to think of you sort of alone in a house in Wokingham with all your kids sobbing. I mean, if that happened now, I mean, seriously, what was that, 2012? So we're now, what, 12 years after that? I mean, would the phone ring or something? Would there be somebody from Team GB, checking up on you and so on? I think that there are people that athletes can turn to. Our team is on call 16 hours a day for athlete support team. There probably were people that I could have called then, but it's not necessarily what you think of doing. And I think also we have to accept that those, the highs, there is going to be a crash after the games, and you're going to feel the feelings. And I was an athlete who was quite sort of stunned by it all on the podium, and I needed to do some processing afterwards. So I don't think you can sort of wish away the ups and downs of it completely. But I guess the message that I've learned that I'd love to, I want to pass on to the athletes now is, there's bumps, but there's a wonderful world out there where you don't miss your friends' weddings anymore, and you can experience the breadth of life, not just the highs in that narrow bubble that athletes are in. More than ever, there's expertise that understands that sports psychology expertise to go to take athletes through that journey, and just not to feel bad for not being prepared at this stage, not to feel like you failed because you shed some tears when it's all over, but that that there is life on the other side. But counterintuitively, it probably helps that most Olympic athletes haven't got bottomless wealth. Far from it. So you've got to do something, and even if it might be a mundane job, it's something to do. A decompressing footballer after a World Cup or something, or come to retirement, has nothing. There's no financial need to do anything usually.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, athletes tend not to have pensions, which is a big concern. So they have got another mountain to climb in terms of getting themselves sorted out and set up for the future, particularly as athletes going on longer now and can be in their 30s, retiring without really any significant savings or anything like that, particularly if they haven't come away with a super high public profile. So that helps, got to put one foot in front of the other and do something. Obviously, being able to pay the bills at the end of the day is the reason most people have to get up in the morning and go to bed. Yeah. So it's healthy. But also, difficult when there's expectations of people around athletes. So I remember it's a very difficult question that the media, but also friends and families ask, what are you going to do next? And you feel like you've got to have a really great answer that's even better than what you did before. And, you can't, of course, have that. You feel like you might be disappointing expectations if you've got career ambitions that are in something less starry. So I think what we can do around our athletes and as commentators is just be gentle on them with those questions. Find a way of asking that doesn't make the athlete feel like they've got to have a plan and an answer on day one of retirement either.
Thank you very much indeed. Anna Watkins, now Chief Executive of the British Elite Athletes Association and a Olympic gold medalist herself. Yes, it's all going to be over on Sunday. Thank God we've got the Paralympics to look forward to. And what we can look forward to now is a gold medal ceremony with Team GB on top of the podium. Maz?
Yes, Toby Roberts of Great Britain making history, not just the first climbing medal for Great Britain at an Olympics, but a gold medal at that. The athletes have just come out for this medal ceremony, and Toby Roberts has a huge smile on his face, still keeps putting his head in his hands like he can't quite believe what he was able to do in that lead climb. Such an impressive performance that really put the pressure on. This cheer is for Jakob Schobert of Austria, who picks up the bronze medal, a combined total of 139.6 for the Austrian after his boulder performance and then his lead performance. Solid, consistent, but always kind of up there and challenging really, and he holds that bronze medal with pride. Toby Roberts though, with such a cool, calm and collected performance. We knew it was going to be a medal for Great Britain in this final. We knew that after his lead climb that there was going to be a top 3 finish for him. But we wondered, would it be silver? Would it be gold? Because Surato Enraku of Japan, the 17-year-old, had put in such a strong boulder performance. And he is about to receive his silver medal. Just didn't have enough, though, in that lead climb to outscore Toby Roberts. And all you can ask for in an Olympic final as well is to put those points on the board, put the pressure on the athletes coming after you. And that's exactly what Toby Roberts was able to do. His nickname is apparently Toby the Terminator because of his gutsy performances. And he's certainly put in several of those today, Toby Roberts. Second to last to go in both the boulder and then the lead climbs, doing what he had to do, as I say, to put down a score of 155.2, which couldn't be matched. He ended up finishing nearly 10 points ahead of Enraku, who couldn't match that brilliant final climb. And Toby Roberts, in a moment, is going to be introduced as the Olympic champion, Great Britain's first sport climbing Olympic champion. He raises his arms above his head. 19-year-old Toby Roberts. He said he fell in love with sport climbing when he watched the discipline, the sport, make its debut at the Tokyo Olympics at just 16 years old 3 years ago. And then 3 years later, not only is he representing Great Britain, but he is an Olympic champion as well. I still think he can't quite believe it as he just takes a look at that gold medal that's hung around his neck. He is sports climbing Olympic champion as he receives the applause from the crowd here in Paris, as we are going to pause shortly to listen to God Save the King.
Mesdames et messieurs, si vous le pouvez, veuillez vous lever pour l'hymne de la Grande-Bretagne.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you can, please stand for the anthem of Great Britain.
Real emotion on the face of Toby Roberts. He became Britain's first climber to win World Cup gold in 2 disciplines last year, in boulder and the lead. And now he's Great Britain's first ever Olympic climbing medalist, and a gold medalist at that. Toby Roberts, Olympic champion.
Well, congratulations to him. He looks so young, sort of 19, sort of going on 14. If he was out doing a paper round, you'd be worried about the lad. What an achievement! He spoke to Tim Warwood just before that ceremony.
Come on, how on earth was that? You're Olympic champion. How are you feeling?
I'm just absolutely lost for words. Like, to find out that I got the gold in that moment, just truly incredible.
Because a word on Serato, he's been so strong. I know you're friends, I know you love climbing and battling with him, but he looks so strong. What kind of went on up there?
Well, yeah, like you said, he's just an incredibly strong climber. He's an incredible guy. It is insane, like, how strong he is. It looked like he was climbing a bit nervous, but yeah, he's still just an incredible guy and so strong. So, yeah,
And that Ed and Mike in the comms, they've been talking about, you know, the plan that you and your dad set out on. I mean, you must be so stoked. I know your dad's going to be absolutely over the moon, but did you ever think that plan would lead to Olympic gold kind of so quickly?
Yeah, I mean, I've been training for this moment my whole life, and now I've just won. It's really, to say it hasn't sunk in is just an understatement. Like, I don't really know what to think right now, but I imagine later there's just going to be a flood of emotions, and I'm just going to realise that, like, it's a goal I've been training towards for 10 years, basically, and just no words.
Mate, you absolutely smashed that.
Thank
well
you.
done. So proud of you.
Thank you so much.
How about that? Toby Roberts, Olympic champion.
That sounds incredible.
Fantastic performance. Many congratulations to him. Football League season in England starts tomorrow. I'm not ready for it, I'll be honest. I could do with another month off, but I'm probably alone in that. Aaron Paul, our man, 5 Live Sports EFL presenter, host of the 72 Plus podcast. Aaron, you're raring to go, I suppose.
Can't wait. I've been eager for a couple of weeks now, getting a bit itchy and just ready for the EFL to return. There's nothing like it.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it does. Will you tell me what are you looking forward to? What interests you this season? I mean, maybe beyond the ups and the promotions and relegations and so on.
This is. It's going to be a strange one, because I feel that if you look at the Championship and League Two, they look like weak. And I want to say that with the greatest respect. They look like weak divisions. They look like divisions where there is no there's no sort of, like, you know, huge favourite in there. There's no one that you think is going to go up and smash the division to pieces. League One seems to be where it's at, where there's plenty of competition. But again, the Championship is going to be like wacky races, like Mario Kart, if you like, with banana skins popping up all over the place.
But, but you wouldn't bet against the 3 that came down going back up, just because the way the finances are arranged now with the parachute payments. And my club's been a beneficiary of this in the past, and you know, to our cost, we haven't managed to go up while we've had the parachute payments, and then you start running up losses, and then in the situation we're in, we can hardly spend anything or we'll break the rules.
Agreed, but there's caveats with what you just said. Mm-hmm. Sheffield United have got big financial issues. Prince Abdullah's been trying to sell the club for a long time. That's true. They're finally signing players, but you know, there's further issues down the road there. Luton Town are desperate to build a new stadium. We know that the majority of the money that they bank from the Premier League is going on that brilliant Power Court project. And with Burnley, the squad is swollen. They have got so many players in their squad, which was maybe a bit of an issue with regards to how Vincent Kompany's side fared last year. The fact that he had to integrate so many new bodies into the squad, it caused him issues. And so it's just going to be interesting with Burnley to see how Scott Parker gets on. Very different style of play to what Vincent Kompany played. A lot more pragmatic, a lot more defensive at times. Luton under Rob Edwards, you know what? There's nothing like Kenilworth Road. Going down there, I can't wait to be there Monday night as they do take on Burnley, watching them play their style of football. And I think if they keep hold of Carlton Morris and Elijah Adebayo, they will have good seasons. But there are so many clubs in there who are trying to rest on how they finished at the back end of last season. QPR, for example, Sheffield Wednesday, being saved by Danny Rule. Fantastic performance from them to clamber out and towards safety. Millwall looking at building on an impressive home form from the back end of last season. Middlesbrough really good under Michael Carrick as well. There are plenty of teams in there who think, you know what, if we can keep momentum going from a couple of months ago, we'll be fine. Look out for Coventry as well. These people, they just always lose their key players. Callum O'Hare this summer, but they go and they recruit so well. Jack Radoni, a fantastic signing from Huddersfield Town. Derby will be interesting as well. We spoke to a Derby journalist on last week's edition of 72 Plus, available on BBC Sounds. There's a bit of concern that they don't have quite enough in their squad for this season. A lot of people tipping them to go down. I don't know. The window's still open. There's plenty to play for.
OK, Aaron, thank you very much. Bags of enthusiasm there. It's a marathon, not a sprint, Aaron. I tell you, we're all the way through till May, and it all starts tonight, actually, the EFL season. You can catch Aaron on his podcast, 72 Plus, and all the time here on 5 Live. Let's go to the Velodrome finally. What have you got? Ahead tonight? We've got Ali Bruce Ball and Victoria Pendleton too. Go on, whet our appetites.
We will. My mind couldn't be further from football at the moment, Adrian. Sitting in the sweltering heat of an Olympic velodrome, 3 days of the Olympics still to go. We are stocking up on snacks and fluids to try and get through the next session, and we're not even cycling, Victoria. My question for you in this next session we're going to watch, I think the big question is, we're at the stage of the men's individual sprint semi-finals. For Great Britain, Jack Carlin is through. The problem he's got is he's got to face the best sprinter in the world champion, the Olympic champion, the European champion, Harry Lavraeusson. How do you beat someone who is quicker than you in a match sprint? Is that possible?
It is possible, but you have to probably tactically ride perfectly with no flaws, no mistakes, and you would probably be relying on Harry Lavraeusson to have a little bit of a moment or a lapse in concentration. The only problem is he's got to do it 2 out of 3 times in order to do it, so it might not be a one-off. It has to get away with it twice really to progress through to that gold-silver ride-off. So for Jack Carling, it is a very challenging opponent to have at this stage in the competition.
That's the highlight, Adrian, of the next session here in the Velodrome. So that is Jack Carlin against Harry Lavraeusson, best of 3 laps. You know, individual sprinting starts off slowly head to head, and then they go like the clappers around this track. We're going to see the women's sprinters for Great Britain in action as well, but they're not heading towards medal rides today. They've just got to get through the first 3 rounds of qualifying. That's Emma Finucane, who's already won a gold and bronze medal at these games, and Sophie Capewell, who was her teammate, who won gold in the women's team sprint. They are both going to go in the qualifying of the women's individual sprint.
And we have the Madison to get our heads round.
We do. The women's Madison final is just after 5 o'clock UK time. Let's do our best to explain this, Victoria. It is a fabulous event to watch. There's real danger in there. So 30 riders on the track, and each nation, 15 nations involved, each nation has 2 riders out there. It's a relay race, effectively, isn't it?
It is, yeah. It's a 2-man race. Only 1 rider is active at the time. It's 120 laps, and there's points every 10 laps. So they have to work together to throw each other in to sprint opportunities to pick up points, and the person with the most points wins. So there's a lot going on in the track.
It's amazing to watch, Adrian. So the active rider is bombing round on the inside of the velodrome, and her teammate will be high up on the banking, cruising and resting and waiting to go. But how they link up together, so they take, it's one arm each off the bike, they grab arms and they sort of slingshot each other into the race. And as Victoria says, the strategy is the bell will go every 10 laps. That signifies a sprint. If you win the sprint, you get 5 points. If you're second, you get 3. Third, you get 2. Fourth, you get 1. If you can take a lap on the field as a team, you get an extra 20 points. So we've got to keep an eye on 30 riders plus do a whole load of maths at the same time. It's an absolute nightmare,
I'm just thinking of you, the commentator, at this difficult time. Remember, you're talking about the swimming, the mixed relay. How it's a marathon of the mind, working out who's where. But the Madison's right up there, isn't it?
It's a great challenge. Great event. And actually, the other thing I should say, we've got a chance. We've got a really good chance, haven't we, Victoria?
Eleanor Barker and Nia Evans pairing up in this event. They are definitely very experienced riders. They're great Madison riders. They've both been successful at this at previous championships. So yeah,
current world champions, and Great Britain the current Olympic champions, although in the last Olympics, Adrian, that was Katie Archibald and Laura Kenny. But they've got a chance for gold tonight. The women's Madison final just after 5 o'clock UK time.
Okay, fantastic. Lovely to hear the atmosphere building there, and your voice and Victoria's too. So much more to look forward to here on 5 Live in these last dying days of the Paris Olympics. Thanks very much indeed for your company today. Mark Chapman will be with you shortly, straight after the news at 1 o'clock here on 5 Live.
The voice of the UK. This is BBC Radio 5 Live.